The interesting thing about like everything that you've done, it's like you just kind of like are always in the right place, it seems like.
It's funny. You say that, and some people say that, and I kind of feel like I'm always like a step away from being in the right place.
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm really close
Really
to
close.
being in the right. I felt like I was really, really close to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then I feel like I come up short to me. But But I can see how other people think that.
Well, I mean, to be able to get into like all the facets of motorsports the way you have, I mean, anybody that wrenches on a car or bike, they probably have those dreams or lofty goals like that at some point. But like, where do you stand to even be, close to that?
I did not grow up with a lot of money or anything like
Yeah.
that. So am I loud enough?
Yeah.
Am I loud enough?
Well, if you put it a little bit closer to your mouth.
Yeah, because I can put it closer if you want.
Yeah. Just
kind
kind
of got to remember how these things work.
Just
it's
push
this
it.
one and then
Yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah.
And then that. Are you better with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
You're good.
I mean, I didn't have any money. I mean, I didn't have anything really. I had I had the desire is what I had. And I started I started figuring out how I was going to do something like with a motorcycle or whatever. And my stepdad bought me a motorcycle in 77, 76, 77, something like that. And I had to work on it because it didn't run. But
You grew up in Odessa, right?
yeah, Odessa.
Man, it's an oil field town.
Oh, it's all oil. Everything out there is oil for sure. And I remember, I don't know exactly what year, but my dad's a racing fan.
Yeah.
And he used to get the Indianapolis paper during the Indianapolis month, I think. They could send you the paper for all the race coverage.
Yeah.
And the one thing I can distinctly remember is he would get that paper, and I saw it, and not on the front cover, but maybe the front section. There was this giant spread of one of the crew chiefs sitting there kind of by pit wall or something with all the tools from his toolbox laid out that he had brought to Indianapolis. And I remember something clicked in me that was like, that's the guy that makes the car go fast.
Yeah. He's important.
He is important. He is important. And I thought, and I was really young. I think I was 12 or 13 when I saw. It might have been 11. I don't know exactly. And I remember thinking, well, I know one thing I'm going to need, because I didn't know if I even read the article. Probably I was never that literate to read something and really get it, but I got it somehow from the photo that I was going to need to get some tools to work on things, because it wasn't just going to get handed to me anywhere. And my first real racing, something that got somewhere was when I was a junior, senior in high school. My grandfather, my mom's dad, passed away, and he left $3,000 to each grandkid, $3,000, which back then
you can buy a Camaro.
Yeah, and my mom had all these, you need to save this, you need to do that. But there was some stipulation that if we were of a certain age, we could do whatever we wanted with this $3,000. I knew this man in Odessa that raced off-road. He raced a buggy, and I went and talked to him, and he said he had a buggy with no motor in it, that I could buy the chassis. And I told him I had $3,000 and probably another 20 from whatever I was making at the body shop.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, I'll sell you this thing for $3,000. And I bought it with no motor. And my mom, was like, what in the hell is going on? What is, she didn't like it.
Yeah.
You don't mind if I cuss, right?
No, yeah. I cuss all the time.
Yeah. So I got that thing back, and my stepdad was kind of cool and gave me a spot in the garage, a little thing, and I just started working on it. I had a friend that worked at the Volkswagen dealer, and he dug up a motor, and we went to the junkyard and we built this thing. And
so racing out there versus like, I know a lot of people that start in like kart racing and stuff like in the Indiana, like that whole area is like everybody kart races. Everybody's in that space.
Definitely in Indiana.
Yeah.
And in
North
Carolina, you definitely have the dirt track, the mini.
So
I don't know,
finding it and then doing it in Odessa, Texas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I found was the thing you could do, and there was probably two types of racing. There, you could either race in the desert, or you could drag race. There was Penwell Raceway, which had a dirt track there, which the whole plan was to go take my off-road buggy and race it at the dirt track too.
Yeah.
But the dirt track also had the off-road track, and it was short course. I mean, I didn't have any money to do anything.
So do you like go do that?
Work.
And
back then?
Yeah.
I couldn't get my shit together for one race, the first race that was out there. And then there was another race, so it was the San Angelo. I did get it together for that. I mean, I didn't even have my own trailer. I had to borrow one from my stepdad and my buddy that worked at the dealership. We went, I don't remember.
So
we didn't do anything. It was so bad that it's almost not worth mentioning. I mean, I had this thing that we put together, but I was just a dumb kid. And I think the one thing that might be interesting is they ran this Texas California shootout in Dallas at Devil's Bowl. It was part of Mickey Thompson had some off-road series, short course series. So it was the year I graduated and got my car together enough to get up there. And I knew this guy from Mexico that raced a lot in Texas, and he helped me a little bit. And I mean, with no money, I got to the race, and I was only 17, and it was a score race, I think. That was the sanctioning body. And I'm like, hey, you can't race this. You're only 17. You have to have somebody sign off for you. And I didn't have any parent with me or anything. And I'm thinking, man, we came all the way from Odessa to Dallas.
Yeah.
And now I can't even race. And I'm sleeping in the truck. There's mosquitoes. It was hot as hell. Yeah. And they said, well, wait till Mickey Thompson, whatever they called him, he gets here from, he's coming in and he'll talk to you. And I waited and waited, and I waited around the office, and he comes in and I start begging him. And, it's funny because I didn't think he was anything I just knew that he ran the series. And I begged him. He said, okay, I'll sign your license, and he signed for my license. And I raced, and I probably, if I didn't come in dead last, I'd be really surprised. I didn't, but I did make the race. But that was
just getting your feet wet, though.
Yeah. I mean, I had raced a few other of those off-road races. I mean, I really, when I look back, I really had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was just trying as hard as I could. And then life sort of catches up with you, and you have to go get a job and that sort of thing. And
well, I remember what got me into wanting to just be familiar with tools and wrenching, because I grew up playing sports. My mom and dad were separated, so when I go to my dad's house, I was forced child labor to go sand cars, right? When I was at my mom's house, I'm playing with my friends, going to the basketball court, playing sports, and I hated it. But when my dad, and actually my stepdad, gave me this Nissan Z, like a 300Z, but we're talking like 1996, 97, 90, somewhere right around there. Didn't run, but needed a lot of shit. So all of a sudden, I needed a car. And then there's this shop where I can figure out how to work on it to get it on the road. And my dad obviously could help me and stuff like that. And I just took initiative, and that's like, I started figuring out between, standard and metric. I started, I'm like, we'd go to AutoZone for something, and I'd see they got some cheap carpet in there. I'm like, man, maybe I could take this carpet and rip that shitty stuff out of there and redo it in here. And then I do it, and I'm just like laser focused on it. And I realized that I needed to be tactile with my hands on things. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think I mean, when you say the age, I'm like so.
I was born in
older.
82, so
I graduated high school in 83. I mean, 82 is when I started building that car.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, to me, it was kind of an escape, because I did not play football, and I was from Odessa, where everybody played football. I had some friends that played football, but
that's what Friday Night Lights is.
Hey, I worked on that TV show. I drove the bus on the TV show.
I saw.
But I really, it was my thing to be working on cars and motorcycles, and I rented a very small storage building sort of thing that I had kept my toolbox in after my high school year, and guys would bring me stuff, and I'd put lift kits on their trucks, or just I would do anything. And I worked at a body shop when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Sanding cars.
Yeah, but body shop's like a good introduction to because you kind of use not just body shop tools, but you're using normal tools as well to remove panels and, kind of do a lot of mechanic work in that field as well.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, I was young and, getting yelled at and telling, they were, go wash this car, go sand that. I did a lot of sanding, of course.
Yeah.
And But it was cool. They let me stay there at night and work on
that's
other
cool.
friends' stuff and things. It was Dugan's Body Shop in Odessa, Texas. But,
yeah. So, you ended up going to the military though, right?
a very short period of time. I can't take too much credit for that.
Yeah.
I went to DC, worked at a dealership up in DC, came back to Texas, worked at a dealership here, and I had a little building that I was renting. It was a smaller, really small place, and I was doing all that. And the first Gulf War was about to start happening, and I thought, man, I'm not going to have something like that happen. I'm here working on cars in this dealership, living this great life. So a friend of mine, I talked to him. I went down and talked to a recruiter, and I joined the Marine Corps because that seemed like the way to go. And of course, the minute I walked in there, what do you do? I'm a mechanic. Oh, really? You certified? Yeah, I'm ASE master mechanic, certified master mechanic. Oh, well, you're going to be a mechanic in the Marine Corps, kid. And so I signed up and I went off, and I had surgery on one of my knees from, of course, everything that I'd done. And so I had to be in on what's called a waiver to be in the Marine Corps. And I, of course, was
that way you didn't get all the benefits.
I think it's more like we're going to give you a shot. If anything goes wrong, you're out. I think that's the best way to explain it. And so I was in on a waiver, went off to boot camp, and towards the end of my boot camp, my knee started swelling up, and then you get passed over to this MRP, and then you end up in the headquarters company. And it's funny you brought that up, because it is the one thing in my life that I feel like I completely failed at. It's
not like an opportunity for you to reconcile it though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no way to fix it, kind of, because I was going to be a mechanic, which I was very happy that, I knew that's what I needed to be, because that's what I already was. And I really wanted to go work on big stuff. And I've said this before. I wanted to go work on this big stuff, and I thought, man, this is how you can prove that you got some chops. If people are going to be shooting at you while you're fixing this stuff, like you're literally trying to fix something while people are trying to kill you. And I guess I had this vision of that, and I was just thought that was going to be the greatest thing in the world. And I was not racing anything at the time. I had my motorcycles, and I was working on stuff. So I joined, and I went off, and I wasn't there very long, and I'm really bummed out about that. And there isn't a day that goes by that that isn't in the back of my mind that, hey man, you just did not.
Well, there's a lot of people out there, I went through a phase too, where after 2002, that whole, that first initial thing that took place, 2001, all that stuff, a lot of my people that I know and I became close friends with in like 2009, they went and joined. I didn't. And then you start to hear their stories, their experiences, and you get, I don't know the word. I think the word FOMO doesn't really apply to this like scenario, but like you just get this like, man, like I really wish I would have had a different perspective of it at the time.
I agree. I had a kid named Alex that worked for me part-time when he was in high school. This kid is a motivated individual. He's just great. He was I met him when he was 10 or 11. I knew his uncle, and was welding on things and learned. I just thought this kid was great. And he would come part-time and work on some of the car commercials, doing the car prep part. I go drive, I have these guys. And somehow I said something about what we just talked about just now, about how I'd joined the Marine Corps. I thought it would be I felt like that's what I should do. There was about to be, a war was about to happen. Actually, I was in the Marine Corps during the war. I never left San Diego, though. I don't want anybody out there to think that I did anything exciting. And I just thought that was to be the best thing in the world, to just prove to myself.
Yeah.
Which, if we keep talking, you're going to understand the whole thing. Everything I do is just to prove to myself, really. Yeah. And I said this, and this kid, Alex, who I just love to death, this kid's great. I guess I didn't know he was even paying attention to what the hell I was saying that day on set. And a few months later, he turns 18. He calls me and says, I went and talked to a recruiter. I'm joining the Army. I'm going to go work on big shit like you did in the Marine Corps. Like, man, I didn't even make the whole thing. And he's like, I'm going to do it. The way you said it just sounded, oh my God. Yeah. Great. It's great. And then I started really thinking about it. And it was I think it's the greatest thing for him. He's still in, and it is that thing that I don't know how you can put your finger on, but people that have joined and gone off to boot camp, and people have been in way longer than I was, they do have something. It's a little bit of a swagger or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what that word is. The kid that works for me now, Grant, he was in the Air Force for 3.
I think for back in the day, though, like that was probably the best way to get acclimated to culture in real life setting and people and understanding things outside of your world's a lot smaller. And, even when I grew up in the early 90s, it was a smaller world,
I cannot agree with you more. I didn't know we were going to be talking about this, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, eventually we got to talk about the BikeRiders and all that shit. But we can,
like 4 hours later, we'll be talking about that. But you are right. And I've had a bunch of guys work for me that were in the military. I could name all of them there. I don't need to do that. But you have this feeling that you at least were willing to give up a little bit of your time, if it's 2 years or 4 years or 6 or whatever. And also I think the biggest thing that I took away from it, that to this day I think of, is when you're in boot camp, especially in the Corps, you do not want to be the person that has done something that everybody else is paying for.
Yeah. Accountability.
That could get into some political argument or discussion. I don't want to use the word argument because I don't think you and I are going to argue about anything. But a discussion about how if you're in the military, or at least where I was, and I think it's with everybody else because I know a lot of people, you realize that if you don't take care of yourself, you're in a bad spot. And then that's the first thing. You need to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. And then you need to make sure you're not causing trouble for other people, if you want to use that, or causing discomfort for other people. And there's probably memes or whatever, all over where, a bunch of Marines in the pit. It's called the pit, where they make you do. You might be in the pit, but at least you're thanking God that it's not something you did that put everybody in the pit, So there is something really about that. I remember that you really do learn that. If you don't learn it, my dad was in the Army for a couple of years. He was drafted, and he always says the Army did way more for him than anything he ever did for the Army, because it learned him to learn. That's not how you say it. He learned to grow up, something like that. The Marine Corps gave me way more than I gave it, for sure. And that's fascinating. I mean, that's absolutely what it is. And my daughter, she's kind of on she's kind of in this little limbo phase of like actually being in the Army, and waiting on some stuff to clear up for her to be able to actually officially join and whatnot. But when she said she wanted to join, I was like, thank God, because I didn't want her to get trapped in a small town, with some, I think it's
guy selling her dreams, and
I think it's great. Everybody that I know that has gone, and I, it's just, if you haven't been there, it's kind of hard to explain it, to the world out there that we're talking to right now. But as a kid, when I told Alex, when he said, I was like, well, just go now. If I could, I never want to say that I could change something in my life, but I always think back, like, why didn't I just join the Marine Corps the minute I graduated high school, and I'd have been out and done, and I'd have been a mechanic, and everything would have been. But instead, I joined the Marine Corps after I'd had my surgery on my knee, and I was in on a waiver and all that stuff. But on the positive side, something I realized a couple of years ago, I never thought about this. I joined in 1990, was out in 91, early 91. I get emotional here or something, but or something weird. When I told Tom Hardy this, I remember he was almost emotional because I told him this while he and I and Oliver were together. It dawned on me somewhere along the line that, wait, if I would have fulfilled my contract and been in the Marine Corps for 4 years, that meant I would have gotten out in 94 pretty much, somewhere in there, depends on how it landed. And I would have probably never met Oliver, and he and I got, everybody knows we're best friends. We're as close as you can be. But he and I, really kind of formed a bond back in the early 90s when I was working on race teams. I was traveling a lot. And I told him that. I called him one day. I was like, I was thinking about this. That every day I just am bummed out about my Marine Corps thing, that I feel like just didn't fulfill something. And I realized maybe you and I might not have met and become friends. And Oliver, he's like, yeah, I'd probably be dead. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you'd be dead? You know, you'd just be living life. You're Oliver Peck. And he's like, no, think about who my friends were when you met me.
Yeah.
And look at where all they ended up. You know, what happened with all them? And I thought, well, there's my lining, man. You know, there's my...
He's full of wisdom.
Or he's full of something.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's wisdom or not.
Yeah.
But, you know, so there's my...
No, I definitely can agree. I mean, I had Rick Fairless in here about 6 months ago, and we were talking about his path at starting Strokers and all that stuff in Dallas. And had he not done that, I don't think that I would be sitting here doing this podcast because of my job that I got working through another company that was working for him. You know, that created an opportunity to kind of like change the path of like how I got here. You know what I mean?
It is amazing. That's a very interesting thing, how what you'd have been done. I do think that I'd be a completely different person if I would have been in the Corps for 4 years. Mm-hmm. You know, I would have traveled the world, and that's what I would think.
Yeah,
that's what you want to do when you're younger, is do all that business like that. I was older when I was 25.
Yeah, well, I developed a wanderlust probably in my mid 30s because I didn't really travel much at all as a kid or in my 20s, and then all of a sudden, Instagram, you start seeing these pictures of these awesome places, and then you realize it's 2 states over. You're like, fuck, I want to go there.
Just drive,
ride. I like road trips. I don't like to fly. And it's not because I'm scared of it. I just don't care. I prefer to see all the stuff in between.
The journey.
Yeah.
I mean, life is the journey, right? I mean, it's some people, I just want to go here. And I see people that travel a lot. They kind of, sometimes it's just, they just want to be there to say they were there and then come back. You're like, what about the journey there? I guess I agree with you on the journey thing.
The pinpoint on the destination sometimes tends to, it creates expectations, and then you never know if that experience is going to meet the expectations. But when you travel through, like, you know, the roads, or, you know, like just on a pace of a motorcycle or a car or something like that, like you just kind of get to a different space in your head because you get time, you know, you're for the first hour and a half, you're thinking about that place you're going.
Yeah.
But then you still got 20 more hours.
Yeah, and you see all these things.
So you start going through these deeper layers of your own
agree with you, for
mind.
sure.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I've traveled way more than I ever want to, really. Well, I guess for racing. You just travel crisscross the U.S. Man, it's kind of crazy, but you see these little things and these buildings and old shops, and you think about things, and I like that. I like that part of that. As I get older, I'm not as much the wanderer as I ever was, but the racing, you know, when you're racing professionally, everything is based on what you're doing, everything that you're doing, even the traveling kind of thing. But you do kind of get to walk into some weird place. Or nowadays, truck stops aren't like what they used to be. I'll tell you, truck stops were different.
What were they like?
Back in the 80s and the 90s, you know, they were one-off truck stops, and there
wasn't like a chain of
there weren't really that many chains. They had these names, and there's still some here and there, but they had cool signs, and they sold different things. And I don't know, I have this, you know, I like that old business.
Yeah. I went down a rabbit hole because last year when I was riding to Born Free, I wanted to go do some of 66. I actually stayed in one of the old motels in Tucumcari. I wanted to take pictures of this bike that I had just kind of, you know, assembled and painted, and then show the world it, right? But I wanted to take it with this cool neon, you know, sunrise photo with this I don't know how to say it, Palomino or Palomino hotel motel, and worst hotel I've ever stayed in my life, but cool neon sign. But then I wanted to kind of drive through these different parts of New Mexico, kind of going through it and get off 40, right? And you just start seeing these cool old like diners that used to be there, and these old like just the architecture that was left, that stopped. And, you know, and then I started, anytime I go somewhere and I see stuff that interests me, as soon as I stop for the night, I'm on YouTube. Like,
you're looking it up.
I'm looking it up. Like, what is it? Then I find out the whole concept of how the name came from, because of the diner cart on a train, or the diner cart. And so then that's why you see a lot of diners that have that metal looking kind of retro 50s.
I love that stuff. Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah. It's to mimic that that train thing. It was part of that whole thing. So I mean, when you design stuff for a living, you know what I mean? Even though custom paint is like far from architecture, there are lines everywhere and everything is made of lines. Just think everything digitally is made of ones and zeros. Well, every lines make up everything that you create, like as far as like art, you know? You can find lines in so many different ways. And to me, as a creative designer of things, I look for inspiration outside of my space a lot, you know? And
I agree. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Definitely. I bought an old car dealership building just because I like the way it looked.
Yeah.
I love the way old stuff looks.
So we can dive into this all day too, and we can come back to
talk about everything,
but
right?
Let's, for the sake of, for the sake of like,
the sake of being here for 4 hours, he's going to want to go home at some time.
He's good. He's a trooper. I'll feed him when we get done.
We done marathons.
Yeah, we have. Fuck, we have. So, I mean, for the most part, your racing career opened up the door for stunt driving or stunt. How would you?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely, it did. And my racing career is so all over the place of whatever it was. I mean, it was just everywhere. You know, I had to work for other teams. I had to do things, and it just went everywhere. It kind of just because maybe I didn't have a lot of money to do things, so it just whatever I could latch onto and do.
Yeah, to stay in the pit, basically.
Yeah,
you know,
and I definitely had to work for other teams. And when I to tie into the Marine Corps thing, when I came home, I definitely did some soul searching. Like I thought, I have to make this next 3 years that I would have been in the Marine Corps. I have to make this count. That I'm back in Texas. I immediately went back and got the job back at the dealership, which wasn't that easy because they'd put somebody in my stalls, right? But I started really hitting the pavement hard to try to find a job on a race car team, a big race car team. Big traveling.
We used to have a lot because I got real heavy into SCCA back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And we would go get invited to these little parties. And I can't remember names, but there was a lot of race teams based out of Dallas.
There was a lot of big Top Fuel and funny car teams from Dallas. And the guys at Big D Cycle. Do you know the guys at Big D?
I don't know them, but I know the brand.
Keith Martin was my roommate back then. And Keith he worked at Big D and they ran Bonneville stuff. And the guy that built their chassis, his name was Ed Mabry. He came over to Big D Cycle on a Saturday when I'd gone up there to get Keith. I had my little shop, my little building. I think by then I had bought my first little building by then. And he and I went to lunch or something. I don't know. Maybe I welded something up for them or did something little. I used to do little odds and end jobs for them on the weekends. And Ed Mabry, the chassis builder, saw my motorcycle, my 71 FLH, the one that has flames. And he asked Keith or somebody whose bike is this? And he said, it's my roommate, the guy that I told you that was the transmission mechanic that really wants to work on race teams. And I think Ed said something like, well, whoever did the work on this, like, they do nice work. And I might be exaggerating, but I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
Or I might be hoping that that's what he said. And so Keith and I, the next weekend or so, we went over to Mabry's shop in Fort Worth, and Mabry had contacts with everybody. He did work for Gene Snow and Eddie Hill and all these. There was a lot of Top Fuel teams in Texas back then, a lot of them. And
Top Fuel's drag racing, right?
Right, and HRA drag racing. So.
I mean, we have. How long has Texas Motor Speedway been out here? You know, is it Texas Motor Speedway or?
Well, Texas Motor Speedway is over in Fort Worth.
That's the
Texas Motorplex is down here by you.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's the NHRA track. So, but there's big names have been from around here, and they were all embedded everywhere around Texas. So I went over. He gave me the name of Gene Snow's crew chief. I called them up, and I had already talked to a couple guys, Jimmy Nix's guys, and some other people, but they were kind of like, your family doesn't race. You know, I tried to explain that I had this off-road car, like we don't care about something with a Volkswagen in it. And I just kept trying, and I got a chance to go work on Snow's team. Cool. And they put me doing the clutch, and I quit the job at the dealership, and I was a professional race car mechanic. I had to take about a half pay cut.
Yeah.
I literally, I think at the dealership.
You got to pay the cool tax.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you know, what's funny is I tried to tell my dad. I called my dad. My dad was a telephone man his whole life. I called him. I said, "Hey, Dad, I got a job on a top fuel team." I thought my dad would think it was the coolest thing in the world. You know, that his son is now working for this big time race car team that everybody knew this guy's name. And he said, "Well, what are you doing? People don't get paid to work on race cars." And I'm like, "Yeah, they do." And he said, "Well, are you making more money?" I said, "No, I'm actually." Literally, it was almost half because I think I was making 450 a week at the dealership because I was getting paid flagging flat rate hours. If the world out there knows how flat rate works, you get paid by what you do. And so I was probably averaging $400 a week or 450.
This is like mid 90s too. So
91.
91.
Right after I got out of the Corps. And Snow gave me 200 a week. And I was working 5 days a week in the car dealership, and I started working 7 days a week on the race car team. And it was not a 9 to 5 job. It was,
but do you feel like you got an education out of that as well?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable what I learned because I was now on this race team that everybody else had their family had been racing, and this was the highest level of drag racing. And I thought at first I thought, oh, they're going to know I'm an imposter. You know, I'm not like them. But then I quickly realized all I have to do is just work as hard as I can, do the best job I can, and they're gonna notice that.
The other thing that comes out of that is just the network, and I think that people overlook the concept of networks, like the people that you meet, and when you show people your work, like your ability to like complete tasks properly, you know, put your all into stuff, like that gets in good graces with people, and then opportunities come later on in life. You know what I'm saying? So,
I agree. When you work in a dealership, I was a line mechanic in a dealership doing transmissions. Nobody's really paying attention to what the hell you're doing. You're turning these things into the dispatcher is like, why aren't you done yet? That's other than that, nobody's really paying attention to. And I was very meticulous. I always have been. I don't really know why I am. I just am. And I would clean every nut and bolt and do all this stuff. But when you go work on a race team, all of a sudden the other mechanic, you're all working right on top of each other, and everybody's working on essentially one car. Even if the team has 3 or 4 cars, and so everybody's sort of seeing what everybody else is doing. And also, like I said, I did the clutch, and I don't want to assume anything, but when you're doing every lap you make, so the world out there knows, you have to take the clutch out of the car. Also, back then you took all the pistons out and all that stuff. So you really learned really quickly to work with the guys doing the bottom end of the motor. Tommy, I remember him, did the bottom end, and the guys taking the heads off because the clutch is spinning around while they're taking the motor apart. So you learn really quick that you're all in this together, like back in the Marine Corps, you know? Mm-hmm. And I don't think I'm one of the biggest team players ever, but you realize you all have to keep up with what you're doing. And my clutch had to be out of the car at a certain time. And it became very important that I was not
holding people back.
I'm going right back to boot camp. You know, you do not want to be the guy that everybody's waiting on that. So you really fine tune your ability to do it very fast and smooth because you can't make a mistake at all. And I stayed late all those nights because I knew I had ground to make up for the guys that had been their dads, they'd been working with their dads on race cars and stuff and all that stuff. So I had ground to cover. Mm-hmm. And I had to call a lot of people that I knew. I remember the machinist that worked at Big D. He used to do their cylinder heads, and I started doing some of the cylinder head stuff on that top fuel car. And there was things that I kind of knew what to do, but the real intricate stuff, I'd just call him. This was before cell phones. I was calling this guy, and
hope he's there.
Get his home phone number. Oh my God! But I knew that it's all hustle. If you put your all into things, you're going to get there.
So what was that kickoff point that took you from the racing to getting these opportunities to drive in, commercials, movies, and different kinds of
Oh, that shit didn't come overnight. I'll tell you that right now. It's definitely not an overnight thing. If I answer that question, and most people say, like, how'd you get this? I can give you a quick answer. Oh, it must be somebody you knew.
Yeah.
And I guess the whole world is somebody you know somehow, right? Everything operates on somebody asks you to do something. But I can tell you in the film business, if somebody asks you to do something and you screw up, nobody's asking you to do anything again. Now you're gone from racing where, yes, you're on TV and you're doing all this stuff and the world's looking. Now you're in the film world where everybody is watching what the hell you're doing. But I think my original stuff that I did was there was some art directors that did music videos and some smaller commercials around Texas because there's a lot of corporations in Texas. And there also was the Walker show was being filmed. And I got asked to bring a motorcycle out and ride it into this. I mean, I think the first thing I ever did, I rode my motorcycle into a club with a girl on the back. She got off, danced around the motorcycle, and I rode off through a crowd. That was my first.
On Walker, Texas Ranger?
No, that wasn't on Walker. But that wasn't on Walker. It was like a filmed live fashion show sort of a thing. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And almost like a music video. Because when I look back on it, it was kind of like a music video. And, I went to wardrobe. They did my hair, put me in this, I think I had a gold fringe leather jacket is what I wore. I mean, it's,
Nice.
no, yeah, I know. I know you're going to be jealous about what I was wearing. And I did it, and everybody was very happy. The director was happy. The art directors who had hired me, there was no stunt coordinator. There was no anything like that. And they had another thing like that, and they asked me if I'd do that and bring a couple other guys. And I did another scenario like that. And then I got called, hey, you have an old hot rod truck. Could you come drive it into this driveway for something? I don't remember what. And these jobs came very slow while I was working on other teams. And I was working on the race team and stuff. And they came very, very slow. And I think I can't remember how I got the job on the first Walker show thing I did. And the stunt coordinator by that time was Eric Norris, who's he's really cool. He raced the Craftsman Truck Series at the same time that I had my truck. And he gave me a shot at doing something. I don't remember what the hell it was, but I did it. And, the whole time you're thinking all these guys that they're all these big time Hollywood stunt. I mean, because they were all these big time Hollywood stunt guys. And here I am. They're going to think I'm just some dumb kid. Back then I was racing motocross,
Yeah.
And I did whatever it was. And I think where I got, if there was, what helped me a lot was I started doing car commercials. People started calling me about car commercials. I would tell them that I could drive, I could slide a car around. Luckily, I did a lot of truck commercials. Are we good?
Yeah.
I did a lot of truck commercials, and there's a lot of off-road stuff, which is where I started.
That's where you started on the buggy, yeah.
So it helped me a lot. My stuff from when I was a kid, when I was in high school, and I just did truck commercial after truck commercial after truck commercial.
All those like Chevy and Ford trucks going at it. Who's the bigger in Texas?
Oh, that sort of thing, yeah. And
you're probably driving for both teams.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely. You drive for all. I did have a long run with Ford. I did do a really long run. Though. I really believed in the product, and I loved all that stuff. I loved the people up in Detroit. Now I do a lot of Toyota stuff. I really love doing Chrysler product stuff because I like Chrysler product. And I worked in a Chrysler dealership, so luckily or whatever, I'm very happy I got called to do a lot of those red, white, and blue drifting commercials for the performance cars. So I had my guys with me. I love doing that stuff, but I don't know. It's such a gradual thing to go from where I was, and you have to just every time you go to work, it's like if you screw up, if you do one thing. And also, it's not just the driving skills, and it's not just somebody calling you. It's really being able to deal with them. So they're not really locked onto how a lot of this stuff has to happen. So there's a lot of screaming and hollering about this needs to happen, and you're like, and it's very hard to go say, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's either that's dangerous or that's not, mathematically that can't happen, or the physics of that don't. And I'll just call somebody else, or they.
That whole world, when you hear, like, obviously I don't know about it, but like hearing it through other podcasts I listen to, it's like they have no empathy for anything. It's more of like a projection of I need this done, kind of like it's almost like everybody does a line of coke when they walk in, and it's all about what they need and want at the moment.
I'm not going to say what people do before they walk in, but no, that's a good way to put it. There's no empathy. I feel it, especially towards stunt people.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of things that are kind of friction between stunt world and a lot of the other parts of production.
Yeah,
we called it production one. I'm gonna be very careful here. I
can't talk like you did at the dealership, though.
Yeah. Also, not the world doesn't. I still have to work.
Yeah.
I've had some directors that I am pretty sure they wanted something bad to happen.
Yeah.
And it is.
Wanted to get that shot.
It isn't just the shot. It's. I am trying to be very cool here.
Some people just want to see it all burn. It's like
they want. They're like, oh man. I'm telling you, I've worked with people that, they want this action and this cool stuff, but they would, at very minimum, be very happy if one of the stunt guys got hurt or something, because then their show had this dangerous.
Oh, it's kind of like it's being talked about. It creates a buzz. Like,
use the publicity.
And I'm not gonna. But I just you just get that feeling like, man, they just really do not care.
Yeah.
What is going? It's like, get me what I want now.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy. It's some of the craziest things that you have to deal with, which is one of those things where I know a lot of guys that are great. They were great motorcycle racers, or great car drivers. They're driving cars, race car drivers. Can't even say it right because I'm sorry. Great motorcycle racers, great race car drivers. That there's no way they would deal with the people that we deal with. And there's some really, really good stunt drivers out there. Should I name a few? There's a lot of them. I wish I could name all of them because I love all of them. There's 50 guys that I love that ride motorcycles or drive cars. There are some that are masters at dealing with the people above us. And it almost like, I'm like, damn, I wish I had that in me to be able to deal with these people like this. One of them is Jeremy Fry. He's a very close friend of mine, and he's a good stunt coordinator. Awesome. Another is Robert Nagel, who was in the Air Force. And Nagel was my boss on Baby Driver and on Ford versus Ferrari. And Nagel knows how to deal with these people. But I imagine Nagel has to go home and have a drink too, because he works with these directors that are.
Do you get the luxury when you have a stunt coordinator to where you just answer to him?
Oh, that's the best for me.
Yeah, so that you can just hey man, get this dude off my ass.
Because that's the buffer.
Yeah,
the coordinator. When I'm a coordinator, I have to take that. I have to take it.
Yeah.
And if the coordinator isn't. I'm not going to say a good coordinator, but if he isn't a really stunt guy, friendly guy, he doesn't take the heat. He isn't a good buffer.
Yeah.
A good stunt coordinator is a great buffer between the director, the AD staff, producers, whatever you want to say. He has to deal with all of them. As a stunt coordinator, I have to deal with them. As a stunt guy, the times when I go work for other stunt coordinators, I'm like, this is what. This is so great. I get on the motorcycle, I drive the car, I'm out. They're dealing with it.
Yeah.
But somehow my path has gotten me to where I'm at now, which a lot of guys, they want to be stunt coordinators. They think that that's the coolest thing because you have the job when you're the coordinator. If it's a movie, you work on the whole thing. I think I had more than 4 months on BikeRiders. More, I'm sure, with everything. Nagel probably worked on Ford versus Ferrari for a year.
Yeah.
You have the job. If you're just the driver, if I'm not going to say if you're a driver and that's what you do and you're not a coordinator, then you're waiting for the next call. But as a good driver, you get a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
I mostly do car commercials. So
yeah,
I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out. So I do a lot of car commercials. With that being said, I'm usually the stunt coordinator on the car commercials that I'm on because it's myself and one or two other guys. I mean, I've had a car commercial. I had 20 guys working for me. It was great. You know, the days that they were there was great. But then there's some stunt guys that will not coordinate. They're just not going to do it. They're some of the best drivers there are.
Do you have to join? Like, are you in like a union for that stuff, or is?
Oh, you have to be in the Screen Actors Guild to be on camera.
A SAG, right?
SAG, yeah, Screen Actors Guild. It's the same union that actors are in. So we're considered on camera. There's a couple of guys. Danny, my buddy Danny Downey, he worked for me on Baby Driver. I'm sorry, I just said the wrong thing. He worked for me on BikeRiders. He was one of the whole group of guys that we were together with on Baby Driver and Ford vs. Ferrari. And that's great when I'm just one of those driver guys, you know.
So when Oliver came in here to do the podcast in September, he brought up the story about talking with Ben. Is it Ben Nichols? Yeah.
Ben Nichols,
which is Jeff Nichols' brother. Yeah. Talking to Jeff about he has a guy.
Oh yeah.
So was Oliver the one that helped you like get into that role?
For BikeRiders?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, I know Ben Nichols. I know him from Oliver, and I think Mike Ness introduced me to him originally. I guess somewhere. And Ben is the sweetest, nicest guy. I knew he had a brother that was a director. I probably didn't even know what he had directed. I think I'm not really sure. I probably had heard or something.
Yeah.
I'd never worked on any of his movies, so I just knew he had a brother that was a director. Years ago, Oliver, you know, of course, calls me. You know, Ben's brother Jeff is a director, and he's gonna make a cool motorcycle movie kind of thing. And when people say those sort of things in our world, it's right. Everybody's got something that's gonna happen. That's cool. It's great. Whatever. And then Oliver, you know, a year later, he's got a script. He's doing this. He's doing that. I'm like, okay. And I probably went to lunch with Ben once or twice. I never brought up anything about work with. Ben's just the sweetest guy, you know. And then one day, I'm sure Oliver and I, because we go to lunch a lot, I told, you know, Ben or Jeff, or I was with Ben and his brother Jeff somewhere at a show, a Lucero show or something, you know, I don't know what the whole story was, that he's got to have my buddy on the show. And I'm sure that Jeff, and I know him very well now, the director Jeff is like, right, you have a friend, everybody has a friend that wants a job, whatever. You know, it's one of those, you know how the world works, right? Yeah. Especially Hollywood. Somewhere along the lines, I guess Oliver being Oliver was just like, persistent. You have to hire my friend Jeff. And Oliver just told me some of this story a few days ago, that he said he talked to him. Maybe they were at a Lucero show. He texted Jeff Nichols my name, and Jeff Nichols does what everybody in the film business kind of does if they're even thinking about hiring somebody or working with somebody. He looked me up really quick, and Oliver said, I mean, this is my perception. I don't know what I think this is what Oliver said a few days ago. I'm old. I can't remember everything. He said within moments of him texting him my name, he called him and said, wait a minute, your guy actually is, you know, something. Well, I don't know what the hell
in the
said.
stunt
world. He is a stunt guy, and he's worked on some cool shit and something. I don't know what he said. I don't think he thought I was the greatest stunt guy in the world. He just thought, oh, this guy is something.
You know.
And then Oliver's like, you're right. And you got to understand, he has been around these motorcycles that you're talking about since the 80s, you know, really since the 70s, if you go that far back. But, because you know, whatever. So Oliver tells me this, and I'm thinking, he is not, he's made movies. He's got a stunt coordinator that he works with. That's how that's going to be. Yeah. The studio has to okay the stunt coordinator. The producers have to, there's just a whole thing. This just doesn't happen like this. You think it happens like this? It doesn't. He told his producer, Jeff did, I guess, to call me. Because one day Oliver and I were at my shop. I was in Dallas. We were about to run out the door. My phone rings. I'm sure it was an LA number, and I answer immediately because it's somebody calling me for work. Yeah. Hi, Jeff. I'm Sarah Green. I'm Jeff Nichols' producer. He wanted me to call you. And I remember thinking, oh, crap, this isn't how this normally works like this, you know? Yeah. And I said, oh, hi, how you doing? You know, we talked for a minute. And she just said, I'm going to send you a script and see what you think. And I said, okay. And Sarah Green and I talked, and then she said, you need to talk to Jeff. You've never talked to him, right? I said, no, I've never talked to Jeff. And we get on a call. And I've said this before publicly. Jeff knows he said this. I'm sure he remembers this or doesn't. He said, I'm talking to you right now. This is one of the first things that came out of his mouth. I'm talking to you, and I'm expecting you to not let me fuck this up. That's what he said. Like of course I'm thinking the directors don't really say that sort of thing to a guy that's a potential stunt coordinator that I'm not even, he's just talking to me. And I said, if you're serious, everything from here on out, I'm going to do to make sure this movie is not fucked up.
Yeah.
And then that's how he and I started talking.
On that note, though, I would feel like because of knowing the story of how Jeff, found the book, the BikeRiders, and how that permeated into like this song with Ben and all this kind of lore between that family and this book, and now this movie coming out, he's wanting to make this movie for the world, and he's kind of being that buffer of the Hollywood place, but he's doing it for our culture almost, and he wants to do justice to that for us. So that's what it feels like.
Well, I'm not in Jeff Nichols's head. He and I talk a lot. I mean, we text 5 times a day sometimes. It's funny. We have a bond that two people that are very different from each other. We bonded over this stuff, but I think Jeff. It's my opinion. I think Jeff saw a book, and those pictures are cool, and those pictures are really more about the people than the motorcycles. I think. I don't know. Of course, you and I, and us people that love motorcycles, like, oh my God, look at that cool motorcycles. For me, for sure. I think Jeff, he knew he wanted to figure out how to capture just these kind of like voyeur moments of, because that's what I think Danny was doing. Yeah. There were definitely moments of him just watching other people that kind of most of the time didn't even act like knew he was being watched. I'm not sure. I can't get in other people's head. That's my guess. Jeff thought it was cool, and Jeff is not a motorcycle person. He is absolutely not a motorcycle rider. It is not him. He's a person that makes art and movies and things like that.
Storyteller.
He's definitely a raconteur, I hear is what they're called. But
not to cut you off with that, but the unspoken thing I think about motorcycle culture for the most part is I think us men are secretly attracted to the lifestyle, sometimes more so than the actual machines, because that book, in my opinion, it shows a lifestyle on these motorcycles. That's what attracted people to it. I mean, you can walk by. I mean, especially back in that day, you probably could walk by a panhead and a knucklehead and this and that, but it's that flesh and blood that sits on it that takes that and transforms it into something, rock star or something that kind of shows you like an alternative way to live or another lifestyle. And it's like, that's what attracts us to things like that. And then you do fall in love with the mechanicalness of these things.
When you and I first talked, I remember you said something like that. And I see that, but for me, I like the machine more than I think I do. I'm sure I do. I like the motorcycle or the car or whatever more than the lifestyle. Just my lifestyle becomes that in a way. But I do I understand what you're saying, because remember you and I talked about this a little bit, and I guess there's all different reasons people like motorcycles or whatever. I think that Jeff, and I mean, I've never really asked him, but I think he saw that lifestyle, and it looks visually great. That Danny Lyons books is everything looks so cool. There's no doubt about it. And I think Jeff saw that and thought it'd be cool, and then he read the back of the book, and he wrote a screenplay to it, and that's what he does, and that's his thing. And then then he called me, I had to just be he said he didn't want, he wanted me to not let him fuck it up. But I think very shortly after that, he realizes, oh my God, I have to deal with this Jeff Milburn guy for like the next 4 months of my life. Or by that time it was like 6 or 8 months, I won't call it a love-hate. I think he just realized these motorcycles are a thing. They're not, this is not going to be easy. For this to be real, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, you had, how many, 50, 60 pan heads and things so like that?
Yeah.
In Cincinnati winter. Then you add film, like shooting a film on film. Yeah. You don't have the luxury of just erasing a card real quick. You got to put another roll in there. So there's the time management thing. I think the chaotic nature of like outside looking in through other people I've talked to that are in that space. There's just so many things. It's kind of like back to that pit crew putting in that clutch for you that you don't want to be the one to fuck up this take.
Oh yeah.
That everybody's like holding the mic up. Someone's doing lights. You know what I mean? There's so many hands.
It was a thing. I mean, those motorcycles were, I just think you go on a ride with a bunch of guys with panheads, somebody's breaking down, right? Imagine, I mean, I remember one of our meetings, our way pre-production meeting, Jeff said at the end of the movie, I think he said 100 motorcycles out on the road. And I remember I'm sitting in this big meeting room. I'm like, you gotta be, in my head, I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
You got some of them on there, didn't you?
Yeah.
There's a picture of it.
It was 60, I think. We decided the number was 60 is what it was going to be. But I mean, all I can think is 60 motorcycles on this road. I got to turn all these guys around. I got to have them all in the right spot. There's a photo in there.
I saw the photo.
You can try to count them. That was one of the last days. The original Vandals won't be in that photo because that's at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I don't want to give it away or anything, but
I don't think you'll give it away. But that whole thing. I mean, I'm super excited to watch this movie. And finding, seeing all this stuff and seeing this movie bounce around from one studio to another, and
that was a rough game. That book that you were just looking through. When the people from the publishing house gave me one of those when we were on this press junket thing in New York a few weeks ago. And I was the first, I knew there was a book out. And I remember, not anxiety, but I remember thinking, I need to look at this book and I need to make sure there is no something that's going to hang us up time-wise. Because Jeff and I would talk about this. I'm like, promise me you are not date stamping any of this movie.
Yeah.
Because if you date stamp it, we're going to get ourselves in a tight spot with different characters. And we have backstories to these motorcycles.
Yeah.
They're all in my head. Like they're in my head. And I'm running around telling Jeff, wait, we can't do this. We can't show this motorcycle yet. And he's like, you're killing me, Milburn. You're killing me. But I looked through that book and I was like, thank God, we're fine. And I kept saying 65. And I remember I said 65. Jeff said 65. And I remember when I saw that first trailer and it says Chicago 1965, I'm like, we did it. Like, that's the beginning of the thing. And because Benny's bike is a 65, the real Benny in real life. I don't have detailed enough pictures of his bike, but I'm assuming it was a 64 or 5. And we went with a 65. We went with my panhead, which for all those people out there, that belonged to Richard Stell, the guy who taught Oliver how to tattoo. That was his motorcycle, and it's mine. But yeah, I was so happy that that's the only date stamp. And what it is her telling the story, and they just show the show the scenes of 1965. Some of it goes a little bit farther back, but we don't have to worry about it because none of the wrong motorcycles that far. And then it goes all the way to. He told me that he never really knows what years some of the stuff is because it goes into the 70s. And so we lucked out. And the first time you see Funny Sonny is supposed to be like 69 or so. And then the first time you see the side of his bike is 1970. And we have a whole backstory that the reason it's 1970 Shovelhead Motors because he and Cal started stealing motorcycles, and when the new motorcycles came out, they went and stole one and put it in his bike because his bike, because his motor was a panhead motor when he first shows up, but he rode it from California, so it's blown up. So that's why you can see the side of his bike in 1970 because it's a cone shovel.
I think it's important to give this movie validity that they did like focus on the period correctness of it, because if you start watching a movie and it's about this, you got these great actors in it, you got, a great story behind it, and then you start kind of cutting corners, like there's a Dodge Neon over there in the background. Yeah. It just kind of like.
Well, that's why I was worried about that book. I thought, is there going to be something in that book? Is there going to be something where when we had BG, that's background, because I won't go into that whole thing where we cast some of them with their motorcycles. And I'm like, oh my God, did some BG's motorcycles make it into scene? You know, I was so worried about I watched the movie really close. The first cut of the movie that I saw was a screener.
Yeah.
I did see something in the movie that had to do with, I'm trying not to throw somebody under the bus, but a different department.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's in there. But I think it's been, not because of that.
Yeah.
I just think that scene got cut down. You don't see that little snippet thing that I saw. Costumes was they were great. I love those girls. There's a particular one that was taking care of me and the stunt guys mostly. Oh, there's a few of them, but they were so good to us. You know? Christina was great. And they were just great. You know what Jeff said? I remember when we were way before we started filming, when we were up in Cincinnati, I was going through all the stuff with the actors doing our, whatever you want to call it, training that we did every day. That's what we did. I bumped into Jeff somewhere in the offices or something. I said, what do you think? What's going on? Or, oh, I think we went to dinner, he and I and some of the costume girls. He said, you know, what's happening now is this, for all these years, he wrote this script, he did all this stuff, and, you know, they started hiring department heads, and he said, now he's starting to see, like, the set builders are building things, construction building things. The costumers are getting the costumes. He's like, the motorcycles are here in Cincinnati. He's like, he's starting to see it. Instead of like seeing pictures of a motorcycle sitting in my shop or pictures of the patches sitting on a table, he's starting to see the patches on the jackets and the motorcycles coming in. And it's like, I think it was really good. It was
starting to come together.
He really liked it seeing that coming together. And I never really kind of thought about that on a period piece because I'm usually just dealing with the stunts and cars and motorcycles. And
I would imagine writing this story, you know, adapting the book into this full, you know, story basically, because the book is not a complete story. If you read it, it's not really a story.
It's not even a story.
It's interviews. So creating a story off of these interviews, you got to have a vivid imagination to write these things and then figure out how to set it up and how to make it look as cinematic as I think that from what the trailer looks like and what these images in this book looks like, it's going to give you a lot of those feels. I can imagine seeing it start to come together and it start to actually have real color in that imaginative picture that you've made in your head. You know what I mean?
He's seeing it in his little notebook in his head. He's like, oh, I've had all this written down, but now I'm starting to see it come together, I guess, or something. I don't know how.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty surreal to see something like that on that scale.
It's his movie. I mean, that movie is his movie. So it coming together, he liked it, you know, and I remember the first time I sent Greg Christian. I don't know if you know him. He's a tattoo artist. He was the closest person that had a bike while I was in Los Angeles working with Austin, and we were doing our stuff back in Los Angeles as people were coming showing up in Ohio, showing up the office, people getting set up, everything was getting set up. I got a call like Jeff and mostly Jeff wanted to see a motorcycle he wanted to see it. And Adam Stone, the DP, they wanted to see a motorcycle. They want to see a motorcycle like right now. And I'm thinking, well, motorcycles aren't going to get there for a minute. And I'm in LA and I thought, well, what can I do? And I called Greg, and Greg's bike was going to be one of the bikes in the show. And he's a panhead. And I said, okay, Greg, what I got to do to get you to take this bike down to Cincinnati? And of course, Greg is I don't know if you know, he's very, very, very self-made tattoo artist, doing very well for himself. And whatever money we're going to offer him to take his motorcycle to Cincinnati is not what he's going to make
to tattoo
somebody. Yeah. So I talk, and I remember the other people from a different department. Oh, I'll get you a motorcycle. I'm like, wait, let's get a motorcycle that's going to be in the show. You know, so I'll work this out. So I call Greg and okay, I'm going to go down there and mind you, this is going on during COVID, and the whole world knows how I feel about COVID, and especially. So Greg, you got to go down there, show him the motorcycle. So I give Greg the number to the people at production. He's going to come down. We work this out. They're going to pay him $1,000 and put him up. And he's like, I'm doing this for you, Jeff. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm like, Greg. And now Greg has never been around somebody in the film business.
Yeah,
He's a tattoo artist, right? big giant tattoo artist. He goes down there and they're like, he has to get tested. I ain't getting tested. He tells him, I'm not getting tested. So of course my phone starts blowing up. What the hell's wrong with your friends? They don't live in the real world where people need to get tested. I'm like, actually, we're the ones that don't live in the real world. He lives in the real world. You know, I'm like, he doesn't want to get tested for COVID. I'm like, is he vaccinated? I'm like, there's no, who cares? It's not, oh my God, this can't, you should have seen. I mean, it's just,
losing their minds.
Yeah, everybody's losing their mind. Greg's like, I just won't take my bike. And I'm like, you got to get the bike down there. You know, I got to get, so finally I coax Greg. This is part of the deal.
Yeah,
you know?
you're the stunt coordinator.
I'm a stunt coordinator. I'm out in Los Angeles. Austin and I are riding around in the canyon country on motorcycles. We're training. I'm trying to deal with a guy driving a motorcycle down from Cleveland to Cincinnati that doesn't need the $1,000 that they're going to pay us to do this trip and bring, because he has to travel. And I don't know why I had to say the money, but that's, just doesn't need it. So I talk everybody off the ledge. He gets it there. Of course, he can't come in the building because he doesn't have a mask on. The only people in Cincinnati wearing a mask were the people working on this show, right? So he pulls up, and I know this. I think Jeff told me this. It was the first time he'd ever seen in person a real old motorcycle. And I think he asked Greg if he could sit on it, and he was like, oh my God, this thing weighs a ton, And they looked at it, and they took some pictures and did whatever they were going to do. And Greg went back home, and that was Jeff's first thing. And I wish I could have been there for that. But I didn't see that. But when I showed up, I brought 4 bikes with me. 5. I brought 5 bikes with me. I'm sorry. And when I showed up, I went in the office, and Jeff and I had never met in person. I had to go through a whole process to get hired. I had to compete with other stunt coordinators. Even though Jeff gave Sarah my phone number, I still had to compete with other stunt coordinators, and it was a process. When I got there, he and I had never met, I don't think, in real person. I knew his brother, but I never met him. And we hugged, and we're like, all right, great. We're about to, let's go look at these motorcycles. We go downstairs. I open the back of my trailer. There's 4 motorcycles in the trailer. And I know he was just, I could tell his thought is like, oh, these things are, these are not like, he could tell they're not like other motorcycles. When you're standing next to one, they're not. Yeah. And people that can't tell the difference, they don't care about I don't know. But Jeff could tell, and I think he knew this was going to be a pain in the ass, because I pulled one out and started, if I remember right. And he's like, oh, you got to do all that to start it. And I explained, that over here, I have to change the timing, and I have to do this and turn the gas on. He's just like, oh my Lord, this, and we're going to have, like, every time Tom Hardy gets on a bike, just like, we have to do this. Yeah, this is what he was definitely enamored with that, I think, or no, I don't know if that's the word, enamored. He just thought it was a different world. These are a whole different world. But I'm glad that we got through
the whole process of, like, basically. So you were telling me this when we was at your shop the other day. You were tasked early on with basically helping Austin Butler get acclimated to riding a motorcycle, and like, what was that whole process like, and what was it like working with him in that space?
Austin Butler is one of the best students I've ever had doing anything, really. I don't, and I guess that's what makes you a good actor. I think that you pay attention to the people you realize you should pay attention to. Maybe is that. Because I do a lot of dumb things, and I don't want to try to make myself sound bigger than I am or anything. But I think he realized from the moment we met each other that he was going to pay attention to what I said about motorcycles. And we did not start on big, but we started on XR100. And I had this guy Clay's house, this great stunt driver, motorcycle guy, and Danny, my buddy Danny Downey, and I were. He and I met Austin up there. The first time I met Austin, there was no people around him. He's, Elvis hadn't come out, nothing like that. And he was just this a great student. He was just a great student. And we started with the basics, unbelievably the basics, And did I tell you this before? But I'll say it on your podcast that I make it clear to the actors, and the stunt guys know this, that they are responsible for everything. They don't have to get on the motorcycle. They could just go tell their agent or the AD that they're not riding a motorcycle. So everything that happens on the motorcycle, they are responsible for it. If a 747 falls out of the sky and lands on his head while he's sitting on the motorcycle, it's his fault because he chose to be on the motorcycle. So everything is his responsibility. What his hands do, what his feet do, what his arms do, what his legs do, is all him. And, I'm very serious about that when I'm telling these actors this stuff because I didn't know him that well then, but you can imagine actors get catered to. He wasn't catered to back then at all. And they think, well, things can happen. It's not my fault, right? And I have to make it very clear that everything that's happening on this motorcycle is literally your responsibility because I can't run alongside you and tell you what to do. Yeah. And I think he took that very seriously, and he was great. He was great. I don't know if I'm giving you good.
Yeah. Well, just
good thing here.
Because I know some people that worked on like original Sons and Anarchy stuff. They talked about how like certain people were hard to I guess Ron Perlman could not ride a bike to save his life, so they just had him on like a little roll around thing all the time. And but seeing someone that like embeds themselves into the role and understanding that because you sitting on a bike, you could tell when someone's uncomfortable, right? So you got to be comfortable with that.
Oh, I could bring that into this conversation because we did have.
It was what was it? Michael Shannon was like, I'm not riding a motorcycle.
Well, I think Michael Shannon. I'm sure he lives in New York. Probably doesn't ride motorcycles or cars or anything. And I'm sure he has his reasons. He's a good actor, by the way. I mean, he's an actor's actor. There was a couple other guys that didn't want to ride. There was an actor that looked really uncomfortable on a motorcycle, that's for sure. But the guys that I kind of took under my wing, we still good? Yeah. They became them. Toby Wallace. Mm-hmm. He and I had worked together on the Sex
He's the one that played
the kid.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He played Steve Jones in the Sex Pistols. Excuse me. So I knew him from then, and we had a great time. I mean, those guys were all cool on that Sex Pistols thing. The director, everybody was cool. When he got to Cincinnati, he and I didn't realize that I didn't remember his real name, and I saw a picture. I'm like, that guy looks familiar. And then when he got to Cincinnati to come start training, we were like, hey, wait, we know each other. We were like, oh my God. We were just going off about all the fun we had on the Sex Pistols thing. He had went out and took some classes in Australia to learn how to ride a motorcycle, and he had a license. Mm-hmm. And he showed up, and he was pretty green, but I mean, I had him riding a handshift bike in weeks and being up there. But he's crazy. He's as crazy as anybody could be. He's just a fucking off his rocker, crazy, funny guy. But as they started trickling in, because Austin and I worked together a lot in California, a lot. We didn't just do 1 or 2 days. A lot of time, weeks, I guess. Once everybody started trickling into Cincinnati, we had a place that I was set up at with 2 of my stunt guys, and we trained with these guys, and we started. I bought a Honda Rebel back when I think before I even knew I had the job as a stunt coordinator. I thought, I need one bike that's small, easy. I can put people on them, see what they look like, that kind of thing. Yeah, that makes sense.
Just get familiar with
it. Yeah, I want to see what they look like on this Honda Rebel before we start on anything else. Danny owns that Rebel now, and but it was great. That little 305s or something. I think they were great. I put everybody on it and see what they look like, and see what you could tell. You can tell pretty quick. A few of the actors had motorcycles back home and stuff. Bo and gosh, I don't know.
Tom Hardy
Tom Hardy rides motorcycles.
Yeah, he's owner of the bike shed or like part owner of all that stuff. And
the first day he and I were together, he came out after I was done working with the guys during the day, and I didn't know what to think. And he came out and we talked, and I asked him, and I showed him the bike because Jeff and I and the production designer, we talked about the Tom Hardy bike. It's Johnny. His character is Johnny, what Johnny's bike was going to be. And there was a lot of discussion about that bike because the real life Johnny rode a very big dresser that had everything on it. It had speakers on it. It had
a huge
windshield. It was the giant. It had a whip antenna that folded back towards the front of the. I mean, it had saddlebag. It had everything. And if I recall right, Jeff said he did not want Tom Hardy riding a bike with a windshield on it. Mm-hmm. Just that, and you can understand that. That's.
You're trying to sell this movie.
Yeah,
You're not
going to put Tom Hardy on a bike and hide him behind a windshield, right?
Yeah.
And he can ride a motorcycle. So Tom Hardy's character, if I recall, the backstory of his character, he was in the military, probably the Korean War, I think. Mm-hmm. Very Americana guy, very USA. Mm-hmm. So we had that 55 panhead that was white. I'm black. Oh, shit, I'm saying the wrong thing. Sorry. Red with a white stripe. Mm-hmm. And it had red, white, and blue pinstriping on it. And I pitched that bike a lot, which I don't know why I did, because that was one of Oliver's bikes that, of course, Oliver doesn't take care of his bikes at all. And if he rode it once, he says he did. I think he was confused of what bike he was riding, because we got it and this fucking thing didn't run. It was such a mess, when we got the bike, but we got it running before we took it to Cincinnati. And so I decided that I thought that was a good bike. Jeff thought it was a good bike because it was red, white, and blue. It fit his character. It's probably pretty close to the same year bike that the real Johnny had. It just didn't have a windshield and all bags on it and everything like that. I showed Tom Hardy the bike. I started the bike up. It was just he and I out there, and Oliver was hiding in my truck because Oliver wasn't even supposed to be anywhere around us, but he kept coming up and staying in my Airbnb. And and I had him looking after the dog, and I'm like, just stay away because I'm going to get in trouble if somebody finds out you're here. And Tom jumped on that bike. He's like, okay. And he just took off. And I thought, oh, fucking slow down, man. I was like, these things don't have brakes. And he just took off and rode around the parking lot. Pretty much he made 2 laps, came back. I'm fine. Yeah. So I'm good with this thing. I'm like, you looked comfortable, like you looked like you were good to me. Yeah. And we probably did a couple more things, and then he's just like, I'm fine. I'll see you the first day of shooting, and that's it. But then he texted me and said, hey, can you send me a picture of the tattoo on your hand? And I'm like, that was the first. He sent me a text, and he said, can you send me a picture of the tattoo on your hand?
So just to be clear right now, you could technically text Tom Hardy right now and say, what's up?
Yes.
That's cool. 1 degree of separation. There we go. No,
I do every once in a while. He is a sweetheart.
Well, on that note, like say for instance, Oliver, I've gotten to know Oliver over the last couple of years a lot well, and we've talked about you a lot of times, but I try not to ever say, hey, Oliver, can you reach out to Milburn for me? Because I want to meet him. And this bites me in the ass all the time because there's times I should do this. But then naturally, by being around his world more, and then Danger Dan invites me to that deal, and then we meet naturally.
Yeah, we bumped in, yeah.
So I like those encounters more than like if he reaches to you and I'm trying to pitch you on like.
You probably have a point there with that. There's all different ways to meet people because that's how the world works. But
it was a rainy day at a
the
Harley
way you and I
dealership.
met was fun. At first, I thought you were coming on like when I first met you, I thought, man, what the hell? He's coming at me, man. But I tried to be polite. I hope I was halfway polite. I know you.
You had an agenda you were selling. I think you took my initial I think your question or my comment. Statement.
We're gonna call it a
statement. Yeah. I was like, oh well, I heard some people say this, and then it turned into like.
I was like, okay, I'm going to prove. I don't know if it's proof. I'm going to show you. Yeah. I'm going to show you the other side of that story. Is what I was trying to do.
And I wanted the other side because I am 100% a proponent of this thing coming out because I understand what this can do for the motorcycle culture as a whole. Like media motorcycles creates more jobs in my world of ground level.
Right. I see.
It helps get more people interested in bikes. So there's a lot of like trickle down economy that takes place when things like this go on big screens or on TV shows.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean?
Guarantee Harley Davidson knows that because they're finally involved. I mean,
so
yeah. When you and I first met, I didn't know you had a podcast. I don't think you had told me that. You just said you introduced me. You introduced yourself to me. I'm sorry if I get stumbled up. I'm old. Sometimes I say the wrong thing. But then. And I kind of got the picture that you. Immediately, I thought, well, I think this is a friend of Dan's or friend of Lance's or somebody.
Yeah.
And then when you said something, I guess I have to be a little bit defensive.
Yeah, protective.
Protective more. It's more protective because I put a lot into this.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't put enough. I don't know. I did put a lot into it.
Hearing all the stories I've heard, I think that like you could attest that this movie will look the way it looks, at least visually, through the motorcycles, the way that they were kind of taken care of, and the training that you did on these the men riding it. Like you can take credit for a lot of that, or at least take some of the credit for it.
Well, I appreciate that. That's flattering. But
I mean, he even says a big shout out to you in the book. You know what I'm saying?
It's funny when I first got the book and I was looking, I want to read this stuff. I'm like, oh man, Jeff does. He does throw some very nice things my way.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very nice. It's very nice of him, and I'm very flattered that I got to do this thing. And
to be a motorcyclist and get to work on a motorcycle thing that's gonna, I mean, if you really think about motorcycle movies, and I still have to watch Streets of Fire, it's on the list.
Get out there and watch that movie.
So
I can't believe you didn't watch it before I got here,
dude. I haven't even been to bed yet. It's from yesterday.
Since the last time we saw.
Yeah. There's only a handful of these movies that are out there. So to make one, you're going into a very, very small collection of motorcycle culture through a cinema, right? I mean, there was a bunch in the heyday of the Hells Angels and like surrounded by that late 60s, early 70s kind of Americana stuff that was going on. But you get into the 80s and then it's Brian Bosworth. I think that was more 90s. You get into this like tough guy biker thing, you know what I mean? Which I get, it's got that vibe, but there was a different tough guy biker thing in the late 80s and 90s. What was it? The one with Charlie Sheen, that one. Fuck, forget that name.
I'm very happy that I don't know what you're talking about right now. No, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
I mean, I am a genuine, like, I'm a big fan of like Harley Davidson and Marlboro, man. It's a timepiece of like the way movies were made in that time. Like I wouldn't look at that and go, it holds up to, shit now. But if you watch it with 1989 or 1990 goggles on, you're like, oh yeah, this would have been cool as fuck to go into a movie theater and walk out and see that movie.
Yeah, it's kind of corny now, but in hindsight, like knowing like that was a cool guy movie.
That was what cool looked like then. You know what I mean?
Jason Quigley, I think that's one of his more favorite movies. He has a tribute bike to one of those. He rides it around. I love Quigley. We used a lot of his bikes on the movie.
So there's like, there's aspects to where like when this comes out to, when I started hearing about it through different channels, to know that like people that I've, to know that Oliver has something to do with it, whether it's connecting the dots or a scene or whatever. Like to me, that's important to be a motorcyclist in like now and get to be a part of something that's going to represent, pay homage to a book and
I've seen the movie twice, 2 versions of it. I don't know if the next version I see will be, they change them a little bit, but if you like motorcycles, you're going to love the movie. I mean, it's just, there's no way not to. Yeah. If you like motorcycles, even if you like vintage Japanese motorcycles, or even if you like motocross bikes, it's just a movie about, it's called BikeRiders. It's cool. I'm not the biggest fan of bike clubs or anything like that. So I didn't get too worked up in that. Not that I'm not a fan, but it's just not my thing to be in a group of people. So, but it definitely has a story to it that has to do with a group of friends hanging around together, thinking that maybe their only alternative is their group, right? Because they're frowned upon by society or whatever because they ride motorcycles. That turned into something that got out of hand, really. And that's the story, I think, is it just got out of hand, So, because I think I was overhearing this part of this conversation. Obviously you've read the script, you watched the movie, and not to spoil anything, but does it have like a more of a, because at the same time between what was it, 64 or 65 originally to 74, the timeline of this movie, there's a lot that actually changed in club culture in that time frame. That's what the movie. That's what I was.
Story is
about. I believe, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure Jeff has said this numerous occasions, that it is tying together its two ends, which would be Marlon Brando in The Wild One and what you got after Easy Rider came out.
Yeah.
It's tying those two eras together. And the Johnny character is definitely a very,
like more on the Marlon Brando side of things.
for sure, yes. And the kid character is he's going towards that thing. And I personally like the aesthetics of the late 50s through the mid 60s, especially. There was a lot of effort, I guess, and everybody's to put into the fact what Midwest looked like in the mid 60s compared to what California looked like. Because they, you don't want it. This is happening in Chicago, not in Los Angeles. So of course, Funny Sonny comes from Los Angeles or California somewhere, and he's kind of the guy the conduit that brings the hippier culture, the longer hair, the more choppery bikes. He brings that in, and as you go forward from there, then there's getting more away from the Johnny character, of course, and then there's the kid character who's
Gonna probably be more influenced or from the Funny Sonny kind of character in that way.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But it's a similar thing of like what took place with like the El Forasteros, which is a kind of famous Midwest kind of club that they brought back this chopper culture from the West Coast, and then to this day they're one of like the coolest fucking chopper only clubs that are out there. You know what I'm saying? And but yeah, I think that like that whole tying it in, kind of talking about this timepiece in this era of like the actual shift and the what a motorcycle club looked like from the outside looking in. It's hard to talk about what it is in the inside of it. You know what I mean? For the men that are in it.
I think so.
Because kind of like when you're in it, kind of like what you were saying a while ago, how you don't see the lure to it, you're attracted to the machines. Well, it's because you're in the middle of it. Like you don't see it from, the panorama view of up here. Like you look everywhere and you're in it, right? So when you're in a club, you look everywhere. It's your light, but on the outside looking in, it could look like a million different things. It could look like the Marlon Brando, Wild Ones, where you're just want a soda pop, stopping in town, or jump into like the more, crazy shit that started taking place in the mid, the early 70s into the 80s and how wild it got. You know what I'm saying?
It's funny you say that. I guess I'll tell you this little tidbit that I know that I heard Jeff talking about this, and it's stuck in my brain. The kid character, he is the one character that is not from Danny Lyon's book.
Oh, he's an add-in.
He's written.
Well, that ties into the story story that's
it
unwritten.
Actually does. Yeah, that's how you can have this.
So how does Benny tie into that?
Benny's a real life character, and Benny is sort of a tie into which part you're saying?
So he's kind of in between this kid and Johnny.
Well, Johnny started the club, as it were. Johnny was racing and doing stuff like that. And Benny was Johnny's younger friend, if you want to. I think that's what you would say. He was like this younger. But Benny is kind of a crazy guy and good-looking guy, and the girls are after Benny, sort of thing. Johnny always relied on Benny to be like kind of his right-hand man.
Yeah.
But Benny didn't want to be the leader of Benny's more like I'd say more like a James Dean character. I think that's my opinion. He's more of a loner.
Rebel without a cause.
Yeah. And he literally is this guy that does whatever the hell he wants to do. He just happens to hang out with Johnny and these other guys. The other characters, the original Vandals, they're definitely, Johnny's the boss. They do what Johnny says. Benny kind of just does whatever the hell he wants to do in a way. He's that guy. He's kind of a crazy guy. I think the Kathy character says it. What I was about to say is I heard Jeff talk about this as I was training Toby, and he said he really there's a moment in the movie that he needs Toby to do something, to click. It clicks in Toby because Toby the actor, the kid, for you out there, the actor's name is Toby. He's playing the kid. So the kid character is with his friends, these kind of young kids that are juveniles, and they're smashing windows. They break out this guy's headlight. And as they're kind of harassing this guy that's just trying to come home from work or something, he looks up and he hears these motorcycles coming down the street through his neighborhood. And what it is in the script is it's the original Vandals. There's not many of them then. There's the 12 or something.
Yeah.
I'm making up numbers here. I don't really remember that day, 10, 15. And they're riding, and Johnny's in front. Benny's next to him like he always rides. There's a certain way we rode. And the Danny Lyons character was in that. He was riding with them. And this kid, as he's harassing with his friends, some guy going to work, he looks up and he sees, just like what you're talking about, he sees, what is that? These motorcycles. And there's Johnny in front, because Johnny's the leader of the Vandals. And Johnny's driving down the road, and it's an important part in the movie for Jeff, for the kid character, Toby, the actor, to show that it clicked in him, like, that's where my life is going, not just over here.
I think that just seeing that scene in my head right now, like that's something that I think people need to see. Because if you really think about it, like, if you didn't grow up in this, it is literally usually that time. It might not have been that light bulb didn't go off, but that image might have stayed in your head, and then it slowly acclimated you to want that thing.
Well, it's funny because we're sitting here talking about it, and I know that you had said that when we first met, and you just said that again, and I just remembered, wait, that's what Jeff said, is because Jeff thinks that it told me there's a few very important
scenes,
moments in the movie, and that one is very important, that Toby realizes that's what he wants, as you were saying, the culture, I guess, and so Toby and his friends go and cobble together some bikes, which they're great. The bikes that they're great. I could go on hours. We could talk one whole podcast about because they formed their own gang called the Renegades.
You're not giving away like story, are you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
I don't want people to be pissed. Like, I fucking got the whole.
No, I got the whole story. But they become their own little gang, the Renegades, as it were. But to get off of movie telling, I hope I'm not ruining this movie for anybody. I don't think so.
No, it's making me want to go watch it right now.
Okay, good. Go watch the movie. Watch the movie in the theaters. Yeah. If you don't watch it in the movie theaters, they will not make more movies like this. They will just put them on streaming things, and you will be watching reality shows the rest of your life. I was riding to lunch recently, within the last 6 months, with usually it's just myself and Oliver or David Steed, maybe, or one of the guys that works with me. Never more than 4 of us. Coming back from lunch, driving down Inwood, I saw a kid, the kid's age, standing in the middle of the median. He was probably crossing from the school over. And because I was keeping my eye on him because I didn't want him to run out in front of us.
Yeah.
I was keeping my eye on him for safety reasons. I realized this kid is staring at us coming down the road. It was me. Of course, I was either riding a panhead or shovelhead. Oliver was probably on a shovelhead. Grant, that works for me, is riding one of the bikes from the movie. And maybe David Steed was on his shovelhead. So there's these 4 old motorcycles riding down the road, and this kid was fixated. Like his eyes never came off of us. And I looked over at him as we passed him, and he just followed us the whole time. I thought, that's Jeff's vision for the kid character. It's like that guy had that. I hope that kid goes off and he buys a motorcycle. Let's say he goes and gets it. No, what I want that kid to do that watched us driving, whoever the hell he is, go get a job somewhere, save your money, and buy a damn motorcycle, because he'll be bummed the rest of his life if he doesn't.
I think that, that image probably, it is the motorcycle, but I think it's also like, man, like, to have like a couple of your buddies go do something. Because we can do a lot of things alone, but man, when I was a kid, go running up and down the creeks and all the shit we used to do in kids, like, it was way funner with my friends. When it was by myself, it's like, man, it's just not the same. building dams in the creek, trying to catch turtles. It's like, it's always funner with somebody else. And motorcycling, I think in that sense, to a younger generation, when you pass a car and there's a kid in the back waving, like, that's cool, wave back, whatever. But I think it's when they see the group of it, it's the connection of other people, like, and they can relate because of how they feel when they're around their friends.
I think, well, like I said, when you and I talked, you definitely feel, I can tell you feel that way. You're like kind of passionate about that. I'm probably a little more of a loner.
Well,
but that's fine because when I was younger, when I was much younger, when I worked at the dealership in DC, there was one or two guys that I rode with a lot, would go do things. And there you kind of have this kind of feeling of camaraderie, and they were older than I am. I still know them. I like riding with just me and Oliver or me and David or something, I actually probably just like riding by myself, but I completely understand what you're saying. And I understand that, it's something.
When you have a great camaraderie of other bikers or other people you ride with, a scene, a connection, you're less likely to give that up and go get a boat or go join a softball league or some shit like that, because you become, like you said, in the whole concept of like you're in the pit and going through boot camp. It's like you don't want to let these other guys down. They want to ride with you, and you don't want to be the guy that's like, I don't know, man. I think I'm going to watch American Idol tonight. You know what I mean? It's
I'm not watching American Idol ever. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. I swim in the mornings to work out from my whatever. That's what I do. My workout. When the gyms weren't open and I couldn't go, it was a bummer. I didn't realize that I kind of went to go swimming, not just for the swimming, but there's all these other guys and people,
It's a social thing.
And it's like they kind of keep you accountable. If you don't show up, like when I'd go work for a month or two on a movie, they'd come in, oh, we got a new member here today. Like, no, I've been a member here for 20 years. You're like, oh, I don't know. Who are you again? Yeah. But there's a little bit of that too.
Yeah, a little bit of what is it, banter? A little bit of that to kind of,
And I missed that when I couldn't swim for a little while. And there I am, the guy that's kind of alone. I'm not a loner. I kind of like to be more alone than with other people, I think. But then I missed that with.
Yeah, it's a balance, right? Like
there is a balance.
Because if you become completely social all the time, then you become of service to everybody else all the time, and you don't focus on your own things that you need to handle, right? So the balance of alone and social is like alone to handle your shit, handle you, social to give yourself. That's where you're going to get inspiration. That's where you're going to get new ideas. That's where you're going to get to flex other muscles of empathy and fucking interest and care. And, just that's how you leave your legacy. You don't leave a legacy by being a loner. You leave a legacy by the people that you affect.
You grow a lot when you're around other people. You grow. I think you grow a lot when you're around other people. Like you said, you get it's inspiration by
osmosis, basically.
Yeah. Somebody says, oh, I heard a new band or something, or whatever. I don't know how it is, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
The only reason I brought that up or I say that a lot is, this is my in my feelings year where I'm just kind of like, I don't know, just thinking about that feelings. Shit. Pretty much,
well, that's okay. You got to, right?
But it's like
have a balance.
In all the, I've literally lived my entire adult life, making money off the motorcycle industry, like working within the motorcycles, right? And it's always been, yes, we love these bikes, and yes, we are attracted to everything about them. All of this stuff is badass. The way that you can customize them, to personalize them, blah, 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 all these different avenues. But that's the coolest thing to say. Not, when I started doing this stuff in the early 2000s, I'm not going to walk in and go, man, I love how this brings us together, boys.
Yes, you can't. You can't admit that you want to hang out with your friends. You want to be like, oh, I just want to hang out with my friends. But actually, you do want to hang out with your friends. So you have to do that. I think motorcycles.
Turn mic down.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Am I fucking up?
No, you can't. Just make sure you can get some good audio. It's all good.
Damn it. I knew I'd fuck up somewhere.
You're too hard on yourself.
I'll tell you. I think of the freedom. Yeah. I don't think there's. I'm a big lover of freedom and liberties and that sort of gung ho stuff, if you want to say it, or American stuff for the reason that we're a country. But your motorcycle, you're like out there in the world, and you can go do whatever you want. I guess you say that, but then again, when it starts raining and hailing and sleeting, you're kind of messed up. But on a decent day, you're pretty much free to just go do what you want, and parking is the best on a motorcycle. But there's something, you feel very free when you're on a motorcycle. I don't know. Because I try to think about what you and I are talking about, what people are talking about. But there's just something about, and I think that's when the kids are waving at you in the back of the minivan or whatever. They see you going by and they're riding in the back of the minivan with mom, right? And they're thinking, look at that guy, just can go do whatever the hell he wants to do.
Yeah. The freedom is within the parameters of each individual's perspective of it, right? Because I've been riding a bike for 20 years this year, right? And there are aspects of when I first started riding a bike, there were so many other things in life that never made me feel free. I got free from those things at the moment, but man, there's different feelings of freedom whenever it's a Tuesday afternoon and you're on a motorcycle in a different part of the country and you're watching that world go to work, do their job, just they're on that. To me, that's a type of freedom that I never thought of, right? I'm somehow, whether it's the choice of working on bikes has allowed me the opportunity to be on this motorcycle on that part of the country, witnessing someone's drive to work and how they stopped and got coffee or how they did this. And I'm just sitting here having some powdered donuts sitting upside the air pump at the gas station,
Why did it have to be powdered donuts?
That's my jam. I love powdered donuts. So
yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's just perspectives though, right? So there's that freedom. There's the freedom of how you feel just taking that 3, 4, 5 mile ride with the boys to lunch. Like that feels dope.
I ride my motorcycle a lot, but not very far. So in the morning.
But you've ridden.
I've ridden I've ridden across the country. I've had my motorcycle blow up in Nebraska. There's still shovelhead parts in Nebraska somewhere. I don't take the long trips like you do, and I'll ever do anymore. I did that when I was younger, but I like the short trip to lunch and dinner, or take a cute girl to dinner. It's nothing.
Yeah, that shit's fun. That's a great feeling.
Yeah, it's just great. I don't know.
See, that's where I've been. So, that bike I just picked up, that FXR down there, I picked that up because I wanted something to cruise. I've been on this kick of like everything that I have, it's got to haul ass and it's got to be fast. And when you get on it, because it can do that, I do that, right? And so my wife doesn't enjoy being on that because it's uncomfortable and it gives her anxiety when I'm riding like an asshole.
Good God, don't be an asshole while your wife's on the bike.
I'm not.
Also, that seat you have on your bike, come on now. That's not,
that one's just not
good for your wife.
But this one is, like we're cruising down the street.
Yeah, you're enjoying.
She can lean over and tell me something and I can hear her, So there's like a different vibe, but that's also like a testament to like where we're at in our relationship that made me want to get that.
Yeah, and where you're at in your life too.
Yeah.
When I was young, way young, probably junior high or something, or high school, of course, fast cars, whatever, that's all you think about. But somebody, I don't know who it was, a guy that I think was a mechanic at a Chevron station that had a cool car. I said something about fast cars and all that. And he said, oh, fast cars are good for the racetrack. But if you have a cool old car, I don't think he said old because back then they weren't that old. If you have a cool car, he said, if you have a cool car and you're driving it fast everywhere, nobody can see how cool you are driving around in your car if you just go flying by them. I remember thinking, yeah, man, I'm not going to be flying by people on my motorcycle. But I don't know. When I drive on the street, I drive very slow, I'm not speeding around at all.
Yeah, it's, I've heard that before. It's like, what you want to have cool shit. Cause I've been customizing things my whole life, right? Painting, trying to make things unique, and you want people to see it. That's how you sell. That's how you,
if you go flying by them at 80 miles an hour, they're not going to see how cool your motorcycle looks, right?
Yeah, and to be fair, like I think social media kind of made it to where we can just put it on there, and then we can go in real life, fly by everybody. But you know, that's been a phase that I'm kind of like I enjoy still, but I think right now I'm on to other pastures or greener pastures, depending on how you want to say it or look at it.
I mean, you have a wife and you guys want to spend some time together, and she don't want to be holding on for dear life. She wants to enjoy the ride instead of worrying about whether or not she's going to die in the next minute or two.
Yeah. And I don't know but like I said, there's so many aspects of like like what draws people to motorcycles. And I think about this a lot too, because I have a son that's 14 that I'm trying to wait for that click, that thing that you've been talking about when that kid sees it. And I'm trying to wait for that.
It could be anything though with your son. It might not be motorcycles. It might be skateboards or sailing or horses.
Yeah. And that's what I'm doing. So I've been trying to, you know, when I meet people or whatever, like I'd probably hit you up one day and say, hey man, can I bring my son by your shop just so he can see shit?
You definitely can.
You know,
I like it when
that way maybe he'll be, oh, this is cool. Like what does this guy do again? Oh, he does this and this, and it might,
or he might think I'm a complete idiot and not want anything to do with anything I'm doing.
He doesn't have AC in here.
Yeah, it's kind of hot up in this place.
Does he have Wi-Fi? So, you know, there's just those aspects. I feel like I lacked when I was growing up, and even though I'm not blaming my parents for this, I think I lacked exposure to the things that I have found later in life. But then again, I don't know if I would have noticed them if I did or not. So I just try to want to expose my kids to everything as much as possible so that they can maybe get a little light bulb of wanting to chase something or go a direction, you know, because, you know, like I said, I was like, fuck, I graduated high school. I'm not going to college. Time to get a girl pregnant.
Oh my God.
What I mean?
Bad job.
Let's go. And, you know, but that's just a lack of not saying, you know, like I really didn't try. I didn't try hard not to, let's put it that way, you know, but it was just one of those things where you don't have another perspective of like, oh, that's something I want to do. You're just doing what everybody else is doing. Right. So military would have been a great eye opener for me if I would have went that path to see other things and be influenced or inspired by other people that had chosen to do different things, you know? And like I said, social media, when it came out, was like the shit. It's like, it showed me so many things in the world. You know, me and you were talking about like mid-century modern furniture, architecture, and culture. That's something I'm really into. That's something I noticed growing up, but you don't really have a description below it to give you like some key words to go search. Oh, that's what that is. And then you go down these rabbit holes of this whole thing that you found through social media. That's where it's good. Or, you know, my favorite place, Monument Valley, like I didn't know that shit was in America, you know? And I'm like, that's the thing was on Forrest Gump. And then someone geotagged it. And I'm like, fuck, I'm going to be right over there. I'm going to go check this out. Love that place, you know? And so to me, like, for me, I'm a very visual person. Also, I think growing up without the internet for most of my, you know, younger years, you just kind of like, you have to have an imagination to kind of like get through your days. Being bored is a real part of like life.
Dug in those Encyclopedia Britannicas.
Dude, I tried, man.
They're right there somewhere in your living room.
Too many words. I need pictures. Magazines were my shit. So
car magazines, motorcycle magazines.
But yeah, you know, like I said, finding out more about. I found out about the movie coming out. In Michael Lichter's house. You know, I'm sitting there with
I like Michael Lichter.
Yeah.
He's cool.
Actually, I was on my way to Sturgis, and I'm a big, obviously I love photography and a big fan of Michael Lichter and everything that he's done and does for the motorcycle world and stuff. So got to have him on the podcast. But more importantly, I got to spend a whole day with him, ride around his part of town. We rode up the mountain, had lunch, and then coming home back to his house, he gave me a tour and he showed me all his books. And I immediately started buying books right then. He showed me the BikeRiders book. He showed me an original, either a photo. I can't remember because it's a little bit blurry because there was a lot to take in that day. It was either a photo, original Dandelion photo, or originally Dandelion cover from the first edition.
Oh, he has a photo. Somebody gave him a photo
exactly.
for his birthday.
That's what it was.
Like
It was a photo. Yeah. And so seeing how he was attached to this, it gave me like this like perspective of, like I love photography, but I don't know where to put it. I don't know what to do with it. I don't want to put it on social media. It just doesn't mean anything there. It's you scroll past it. But this dude's looking at a photo that someone took a long time ago, and it's important to him. It's part of his life. and it's hanging on his wall. Like are you going to take all your Instagram photos and put them on your wall? Like,
let's hope not.
Yeah. I mean, I know people probably do that, but it gave me this like idea of like, okay, well, instead of looking at photography and digging into this shit through social media, like I want to hold it and I want to see it here, and I want to get out of the.
You said that you like that. That is something that I don't like about modern day people taking photos or whatever. It's on a phone. It's on a device. You know I collect old photos. Oh
yeah. I saw
there and looked at
I went through your photo collection. Yeah,
I love those old photos. God, I go in antique stores and buy $20 worth of just 50-cent photos. And
dude, his house, it's a fucking museum, or his shop, basically.
My house is upstairs.
My wife's down now. She's like, okay, I can definitely do this. I'm like,
oh, really? That's cool.
So we're trying to, one day we're going to, maybe instead of a house, we'll try to find a dope shop and we can build something inside of it.
Thank you.
It's a cool vibe, though.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that. I like it that you sat there and looked at the stuff. I told you I had a bunch of stunt guys come over one time, and all of a sudden I noticed they were like, some of them had disappeared, and they were just looking through my stuff. And most people think that's terrible, but I loved it that somebody was enjoying it.
Yeah.
I liked it that you enjoyed those photos. And
dude, if I was spending the night, I would have been in there. I'd have pulled books off the shelf and just been on the couch, just flipping. You know what I mean? Because that's when I have people come to my house, I start pulling books off. Hey man, you got to check this out.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It's just like, it's a real different type of gift. When you want to show someone a photo or something cool, like tangible in your hand, it feels real to hand them something like this.
Instead of pulling their phone out.
Hey, let me find that one photo. Okay, don't swipe left or right, but look at this and then hand it back to me. That doesn't feel.
I'm with you.
It
I
feels
can't.
cheapened. No matter how great of a photo it is, it doesn't feel like it carries the same weight.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It is anything that has to do with the goddamn phone doesn't have anything. It's not the same. I mean, you notice I have real phones in my house.
Yeah, I saw a real payphone.
Yeah, I have a payphone. I own 2 payphones, but one of them's in my house and it works. I mean, I want a phone that if an intruder comes in, I can kill him with it. You know what I mean?
Beat him with it.
I can just beat him with my phone at the last ditch. No, I am.
But no, all that stuff like that, going actually the first thing that started changing a lot of how I don't know. I wouldn't say it was a perspective shift in my life, was going to Lichter's house, seeing his books, seeing a real photographer's connection to photography. That changed me in a lot of ways that I'm still trying to, I guess, put the pieces back to what they're going to become now. But it's like it shook up my idea of what this was. And then I think we were mentioning to you our buddy Oliver that has a shop that lives in a shop in Long Beach. And you go to these spaces that you're just like, I go to people's shops all the time. You see their workplace, and it's kind of like set up to do the job. It doesn't always have a good representation of who that person is. You know what I mean? There might be a cool poster or some plaques from magazines and stuff like that, but when you go to certain people's, like your situation or Oliver's or Lichter's, where he essentially has a studio at his shop or his house, you see who they are at home. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree. I think that you definitely can tell what somebody's like by where they live.
Yeah.
I mean, and people like Oliver and myself surround ourselves with
Oliver's
so
house,
much
dude.
stuff,
So,
but
I've only been in Oliver's house once. I haven't got to rummage through his things yet, though.
I mean, it'd take 3 days to get through one room. He has so much shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like my stuff. You have stuff around here. I like having my stuff. I don't know what it is. I don't feel like I'm materialistic. I don't want new stuff. I don't want things that are made in China.
You want things that mean something to you.
Yeah, I do like things that. That's why I like photos, because that is a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
That is a captured moment in time. It's not digital.
Yeah. Yeah, even like down like your shop itself, like the tools, the cleanliness, the organization, like you have your toolbox is essentially a wall.
It is a wall.
But I mean, it's like you spend the money on the things that you need to do the things that you want to do in life. But then, like, I don't know. Like I said, I could spend hours just kind of whether it's in the living quarters upstairs or just hanging out in the shop, you know.
You're more than welcome to come back and spend an hour or two at my place if you like.
Just an hour or two.
Yeah.
He's got to get to work.
After 2 hours, you're out. No, I like it that people appreciate my place. I really do. There's a bunch of crap in there, and I like it that people look at it. I mean, I have it all displayed so people can look at it. That's cool. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's humbling that people like that stuff, you know.
Well, I mean, like I said, once again, to kind of talk a little shit to whatever, it's like, I've been fortunate to stay in a lot of people's houses, traveling on motorcycles and podcasts. And, you know, sometimes it's sad when I see someone that's so enamored into this culture and then you go to their house and they have no say in their house. It's like Target.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And, you know, they didn't even get to pick what kind of couch they get to sit on every night when they get home from work. It's like, not that you have to like be an asshole to like your significant other or whatever, but it's like that's your job. It's separate from your life at home.
You know what I mean? It's almost like they have an alter
have a man
ego.
cave.
They take
their alter ego.
They take that culture off at the door and they hang it on the hanger.
Yeah.
They walk into their regular life, quote unquote regular life.
And I mean, trust me, I understand that that's probably the way it is for a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the fact that you get to have a home to come to and wife, kids, that's all badass, you know, but I think it's more appealing to me when I get to go see these people who do amazing things and you see their house or how they live and you realize they surround themselves with the things that inspire them and that they love. And that has to be, you know, just like this reoccurring effect that makes them do more cool shit, as opposed to like, oh, well, let me go to the basement and turn on my man cave lights and, you know, go play pool with myself and, you know, shit like that. I mean, trust me, I wish I had a basement, but you know, it's just like that kind of stuff, you know.
Damn it, there's no basements in Waxahachie.
Yeah. But I don't know, just different shit, man. But you know, this, like I said, back to what I was originally talking about, it's like going there, he introduced me to the book. And at the same time, I'd seen the book before, I didn't pay attention to it because the
BikeRiders book?
Yeah. I just, until I was in Lichter's house, I didn't look at books the way I look at them now. You know what I mean? Because I've seen him and how he felt about him as he showed me things. I was like, I'm very observative in those kind of things. And I was like, I think that's what I'm missing in this love of photography, this love of creating stuff.
Having books, you're saying, or having
books, just like tangible things, you know?
And now you're going to be looking through antique stores like I do, looking for these
I do it all the time, man. I was telling you, I was at Lula Bees the other day.
Digging through pictures.
If I see a Tashcan logo on it, I'm like, this has got to be a good book. You know what I mean? So, but it's just different. I mean, it's already, I can see myself getting out of hand. I've filled up one bookshelf and I'm looking at another one. But it's got to be a mid-century modern style bookshelf. So and then it's got to have the same finish to match the other ones. And so we're trying to do that. Oh, somebody, I don't know if it was you, but I have to ask. Somebody sent me a BikeRiders poster, but it's the one for December 1st.
Somebody did?
Yes.
It wasn't me.
So I don't. It just came. It just came to my house today.
It was not.
Look, and it's like the poster on both sides too. So it's like,
yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
I took a picture.
Did you say something to somebody?
The only other time I even knew this poster existed is when we were at the Harley dealership. And for the people listening, I'll put a picture of it up on the thing when we do it. Yeah, with the December 1st.
Yeah, that's the original poster.
Yeah, so I don't know if I don't know anybody that was in that room that has my address. Like I don't think Oliver has my address. And
Oliver doesn't have one of those posters.
Yeah, it came from like New York or some shit. I don't know. So I had to put it out there. Somebody's listening.
That's crazy.
But there's no like name on the return. It's just like a there's an address to return, but there's no name of sender or anything like that.
And the address is in New York?
I think so. Yeah, I can look at it again. But
I think I don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah. I'm stoked to have it though.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be me. They just didn't know my
I thought I was gonna have the only one of those December 1st posters in Texas.
Well, didn't you show up to the dealership with like 6 or 7 of them, and then Oliver took them all?
I don't. That's not what happened. But yeah, Oliver did take them all. Yes. Those were the later date ones.
Well, I think that stuff's cool, man. Like going back to what we were talking about with like, you know, this movie when it comes out, what it's going to mean to our you know, world, hopefully, you know.
I'm just cracking up about how Oliver freaked out and took those posters. That was everybody sitting in the room like, wow, that dynamic between Jeff and Oliver sure is weird, isn't it?
Well, y'all, you know, like I say, what, almost 30 something years, friends?
I think more than 30.
A little bit, yeah. So early 90s, huh?
91 or 2.
So
92. Or it would have been like early 92 maybe.
Okay, it's like 32 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Dude, I was just thinking the other day, like 2004 was 20 years ago. And I was like, what the fuck? That was when I got my first iPod Nano or something like that.
Time flies.
But it's also the first year I got a motorcycle too. So I didn't come from a motorcycle family. You know, my uncle, my mom's brother, he had a horrible motorcycle accident in the late 80s that is pretty much, he's not a vegetable, but he's, you know, home ridden for the rest of his life, you know. And not that my family was against me riding a bike. It's just that it wasn't like motorcycles were, you know, in the garage. And then eventually I jumped on one. It's like I knew how to sand and paint, and I got a job at a motorcycle shop. And I was this is cool as shit.
These are cool.
Yeah, because like 4 days later, Discovery Channel was in there filming for that biker build-off shit that Rick was doing a long time ago. And so I'm sitting here going, holy shit, like I just took this little $250 a week paycheck job, early 2000s, and there's a TV crew in here now, and there's only 3 people that work here. Maybe I'm going to be on TV, but you know, the odds, right? I just thought that was cool as shit. Just the world of like custom motorcycles. And I growing up like drawing and being artistic and autistic.
Oh, you're artistic.
You know,
I've seen it.
you don't know how to apply that to an adult job, you know? And so like when I found custom paint, I was like, holy shit, like I can draw with an airbrush the way I used to draw back in the day, and just opened up a world for me. So
it seems to be a good world for you.
It's got me sitting here with you in some form or fashion. So that's pretty cool. And you have Tom Hardy's phone number. So that's pretty good.
You want me to text him really quick?
No, dude,
he's a sweetheart. Yeah. You know, I don't want to ever bother him.
Yeah.
But every once in a while I'll text him, or he'll text me, and I'll just say, hey, I hope you're doing good.
See, it's good you don't drink, because I'd fucking get drunk and be like, hey, that last movie sucked. I'd just be talking shit to people.
You know, it's funny. When I see a show or a movie and realize, oh, Tom was in that, I'll text him and say, hey man, that movie was cool. And he's very nice about it. He is a very nice person. He's cool. I like him.
So BikeRiders coming out, you're going to be in LA, right? You get to go to the premiere for how does all that stuff work? Oh, actually, real quick before we do it,
the premiere is going to become one.
Just so that for my own sake and what everybody would like, what was the deal with the release dates? Like, didn't the movie get sold to a new situation?
Yes.
Okay.
The movie was made by one studio, which its parent company would be Disney. Mm-hmm. And everything got revved up, and posters were made and dates were done. And we did a couple of things.
Yeah. But last year you also had the writer strike and the actor strike, so that kind of made it hard to...
The writer strike wasn't that big a deal. The Screen Actors Guild strike, which would mean that like the actors couldn't go promote the movie. I wouldn't be able to do any, because you have to be paid under that. I think that's what officially was said, why the date was moved. And I guess somewhere in there, I don't know what drives people to do what people do, or studios. And somehow it left one studio, which was under Disney, and went to another studio that's under Universal. And now there's a lot of marketing going on with it, which I've been.
Yeah, you were doing the press stuff.
Oh my Lord, I spend a lot of time on the phone and emails and because there's a lot going on, and the premiere is going to happen right before the release date, and we're working out. I guess I'm a little bit a part of that, working out how that's going to happen, what's going to happen with the premiere, and then the wide release will be the 21st. I think, which is Friday. And you're gonna be in Los Angeles then, right? Or at least
I'll be there
that neighborhood.
Yeah, I'll be in Venice. So
Venice.
Yeah.
Oh, it's I keep. Man,
that's when I go there. When I go there, I stay in Venice. Yeah.
West Side. So so maybe I think no matter what happens with the premiere, I'll go to the premiere, of course. Yeah. But whatever happens that Friday, I think that Friday myself and some of the stunt guys and friends and stuff will go see a movie in LA. And like I said, you and your wife are welcome to come with us whenever we figure out where the hell we're going to go see it. Yeah.
I'll be in Venice. So that Saturday I'm doing the Born Free show, but I'll be there for the entire week, like after that too. So,
you're going to stay there the whole time?
Yeah, because that's the first kickoff of my 8 weeks on the road that I'm doing.
Oh yeah, you were telling me.
And so I'm going to start there and kind of work my way to New York by going up north all over the place and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that would be a fucking amazing experience. And then, just so people know as well, like, so in the movie, like your character is riding the bike that the actor that's playing Danny Lyon, the photographer that made the original book, like, so you're kind of that guy the whole time. I mean, do you get your face on it much, or is it more like?
Oh yeah. Yeah, because there's these big pack rides. We worked it out. It was worked out that all the stunt guys are sort of playing characters of vandals. Mm-hmm. Some have specific names and some are just vandals.
Yeah.
I don't remember if mine had the name of Jeff. Kind of like that's how it ended up in Ford versus Ferrari. Like my character guy that I was just Jeff because that was my name.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't think he gets a credit as that. But well before we started filming, we had made up our minds that when I wasn't doubling Austin on a motorcycle or in a car or wherever it would be, that I would be on one of the motorcycles as a vandal. And then when the way it's written is, and what happened in real life is Danny Lyon would ride on the back of other people's motorcycles. He had his own, he had a Triumph, but he would ride on the back of other people's motorcycles to take photos.
Yeah.
And so the very nice, very cool actor named Mike Feist plays Danny Lyons. So he came out on when we were working with the actors, and he and I worked together, and he didn't really need to learn much, but he would get on the back of the motorcycle, ride around, take photos.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. So we worked with that a lot because you don't want him falling off or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
He had to do. Did I tell you this? Because the way we would run these big pack shots, or any of some were small packs, some were big packs. There was the actors, of course. Tom Hardy's always in front because he's the leader, and then Austin's right there, and then we have the other actors that ride their motorcycles, and then I was always the bike between the actors and the stunt guys, and there was all the stunt guys behind me. I had 2 stunt guys that kind of choreographed the rest of the stunt guys behind us, and then we had these BG riders that I had okayed. So I would have to make sure everybody's bike is running, everybody's ready to go, the actors are ready to go, all this stuff, and I'm running around.
Can imagine kickstarting 30.
Oh my God! And we have a few picture bike mechanics, picture car mechanics. They're Teamsters actually. Two of those guys were my guys. Well, they were the guys that took care of the motorcycles for the most part. So we're running around. If something doesn't start, everybody's cool. And they're film. It's not digital. So there was all these certain things that we did, and what we had worked out with the AD department is that nobody could call action. Nobody would call action until I was on my motorcycle.
Yeah.
So I'd be running around, getting everybody's okay, making sure everybody's cool, everybody knows what they're doing. For whatever shot it was, we did these things daily, right? We did hundreds of them a day. I don't know if hundreds, but we did a lot a day. And the poor guy that had to play Danny Lyon, so he had to stand next to my motorcycle, right? And this guy's an actor with a camera in his hand, dressed in period clothes, and he's standing there. And I know the first few times we did this, he realized he didn't have much time between the time I got on my motor and he had to get comfortable. But man, by the time we were done filming, he was a pro at it, because he knew the exact way I would walk through the crowd and take care of everybody and get, stunt guys, BG, the actors, the order that I did it in. And, I mean, he knew when I was, as soon as my leg went over that motorcycle, the AD department they gotta go. There's cameras that gotta roll. And that guy could get on my motorcycle so fast, and I didn't even know he was getting on. And we were gone. And so it's pretty cool. So if there's a lot of scenes where he's on the back taking photos of everybody else. And I always rode my cream puff bike. I call it my cream puff. My which it got its nickname during that show. Actually, one of the stunt guys, he's like, "This thing is a cream puff." It's my sparkling burgundy bike that Oliver. If there's ever some time that like I fall down some stairs or there's a questionable how I die, it's Oliver killed me so that he could get that motorcycle. Oliver pushed me down the stairs. Oliver.
Well, those stairs of your house, you can definitely die on those.
Yeah, because
real quick, while it's on my head, like the main bikes in the movie, like the main character bikes, are all yours, right? Like your personal ones, like the ones that the one that Funny Sonny rides is that red shovel head that was on the lift when I was at the shop.
Oh, that is one of Oliver's motorcycles.
Okay, Oliver's.
Yeah, that's a bike that I built for Oliver a long time ago. Actually, a really long time ago. I picked that for Funny Sonny's bike for a specific reason because it is a West Coast looking bike of that period of time, and he shows up on that bike. Jeff completely agreed with that. Jeff loved that bike anyway. So, and the Tom Hardy bike is an Oliver bike. Oliver owns that bike.
Oliver's.
I don't remember the exact number of motorcycles because our original deck had 45 motorcycles in it, but we ended up buying more and bringing them to. But I think 13 motorcycles in the movie are my personal bikes.
And the main bike that Austin's riding
that's
the bridge scene.
That's my 65 cool. Panhead. And
that's got to be badass to see your bike being immortalized in that movie like that, though.
That was pretty cool. I like it that it's the poster bike too.
Yeah.
I of course it doesn't match the bike in the picture of Danny, but there's a reason out there in the world. I think you and I discussed this. Yeah. There's a reason that we did. I say we, and I want to give some credit to Wilbur. His name's Daryl Dudley. He was one of the mechanics owners of Satan Cycles, which is the place I worked at in the 80s. When all this started coming together, I asked Wilbur if he wanted to put a bike together because I had to put a bike or two together at the shop myself and the guys that work for me. I can't take credit for all this. And Wilbur said, sure. He had some parts together. And I said, well, we got to build a bike that looks like the bike in the picture, the bridge. I did that on my own. And then once all said and done, well, there's Danny Lyon, the real Danny Lyon. I don't think he knows who that guy is. So there's no story of that guy.
Oh, so the photo looking back, that's not Benny.
That's not Benny. That's somebody that he took a photo of. And I saw some photos later that were other photos that aren't in the book of that same guy. But I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he has no idea who that guy was, and he didn't interview that guy. So that guy's story is not in the book. So there was no place for us to really stick that motorcycle in as a main character. We talked about it, Jeff and I, and the production designer. But it's sad because it didn't get a main billing. That bike didn't. And on my own, I asked Wilbur if he had the parts to put one of those bikes together, and Wilbur did. And then on my own, I realized I had enough extra parts pretty much to put a second one of those bikes together. And I kept thinking to myself, and I don't know why I did this, because this is not, I should have put more thought into this because there was no character for that bike. And I said, let's build a second one of those because that's the bike in the photo. And I did it on my own. So we built, I'm saying we, but Wilbur, Daryl Dudley, pretty much built two of those motorcycles. I sent the parts to him. It was the frame for one of those was a frame that I had fixed. And the wheels were some wheels that I laced up and stuff. And I sent that up there and a triple clamp that I'd fixed. And he assembled everything. And I'd found a motor somewhere. I found a 57 motor. And Wilbur diligently, quickly put those two bridge bikes together that matched that photo. And They're very close. I'm sure somebody with a magnifying glass is going to pick something apart. But and they're cool looking motorcycles. Those things are great looking. They're in the movie in a couple places. I think I might have ridden one by something, and might have had one of the stunt guys ride one by, but they don't get ridden much, and they're parked places.
So I noticed it, like the recreation of that photo though. Is that just for the photography, or did they actually recreate that scene as like riding across that bridge?
I think I can answer that question the way I'm not sure exactly what the question is. So in the movie, there are specific things, there are specific shots, motion shots that match pretty close to a photo. That right there, see that photo of the guys going over the bridge? Yep. That's the cover of the book, right? That's the Renegade guys. Jeff, the director, wanted a shot like that, right? And he wanted a shot of that. See that one with cockroach? I think that's in the book somewhere. I think he's with his wife. I think there's a picture like that in the book somewhere. Yeah. And when Kathy first sees Benny, that's a photo that's from the book. Also, there was a lot of photos given to Jeff and the production. Yeah. And that we saw that weren't in the books, but that picture of the guy looking backwards, the most famous picture. Yeah. Jeff wanted to recreate it, I'm sure, for the movie. The crux of that is there's no character for that. So he put it in a thing that happened in real life, which the real Benny ran from the cops in real life. So there it is.
So I was going to say that because same bridge, all that stuff, right?
Oh, well, you want a funny story? Not a funny story, great about this bridge. This photo was taken on a bridge that goes from Kentucky into Ohio, crossing the Ohio River. If you look at the photo, which is in the book or in the movie, it has the same railroad trestle bridge next to it, right? It looks almost identical. AJ Haley, one of the stunt guys that work for me, shout out to AJ because he's great. He lived in my basement in my Airbnb the whole time. We had a discussion, and AJ said that this bridge is not the same bridge as the bridge in the photo. And I'm like, oh, horse feathers, it's the same goddamn bridge. It's the same. You can see the railroad trestle, it's the same bridge. And and AJ, being polite, didn't argue with me. He said, well, I think it has different holes. I'm like, whatever you're talking about. Well, if you look at the real photo, there's holes in the bridge.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And I'm assuming, this is Jeff Milburn assuming, probably the same company built this bridge, or maybe they didn't, and built the same the railroad trestle bridge. And I guess just because of the way the roads were built when that stuff was built, the railroad trestle bridges were next to the roadway bridges, and they're even crossing the same damn river. Those two bridges look alike. The two bridges that the motorcycle's on, the two bridges that are the ones next to it look alike, and they're crossing the same river, but they're in a different place. And the funny thing is, like, I am definitely eating crow because I was like, oh no, this bridge is right here in Cincinnati. And AJ was like, it's not the same bridge. It's not the same bridge. And AJ pulled up some Google image of the bridge that's over in Kentucky. And we looked at it and we're like, oh yeah, that is a bridge that's crossing the Ohio River, but it's in Kentucky, crossing it from Louisville to somewhere else. So it's very close, but you notice it doesn't have the holes in it. Yeah. And I was an idiot. I thought it was the same bridge. In fact, when we were riding around at night with the actors and some of the stunt guys, I kept saying, hey, this is the bridge we're riding. Well, it's the bridge we shot on, but it's not the exact same bridge.
Well, I think it's like cool that y'all found a way to kind of use that in the movie still, even though it was like I didn't know that character was like not necessarily a credited character in the book. You know what I'm saying?
Well, he's not one of the guys in the book, and
I think so. Initially, whenever we met, I was kind of bringing that. That was the thing. It's like, hey, the people that love this book are wondering if you guys are going to do it justice, and then.
And then we started,
and then basically,
I apologize for my defensiveness,
but it's like. But that's what people were saying to me, and I'm like, was like, okay, well, let me ask this question to people I feel like they might know. But now knowing
you came in heavy, by the way, you come in. No,
but now knowing like all these different parameters of what had to be done to fill in these gaps that were left behind. You know, whether it was Jeff writing this script that kind of told a complete story off of these interviews and these photos, or trying to recreate these scenes that were in the book, or these motorcycles that were in the book. Like, there was just so many things that I think that the outside looking in, the armchair quarterback kind of person was like, oh, well, it's not going to be like the book.
It's not the book. Oh,
yeah.
I had somebody complaining about the bridge bikes that I'm going to say we built, but I have to say Darryl Dudley built, that the fenders weren't as long as I'm like, okay, that's 2 inches shorter fender. Can somebody, who got the calipers out to see that the fender, but Jeff and I talked about the script because I remember he wanted me to read the script before that first phone call. Yeah. And here's a little anecdote thing that I thought was kind of funny because I didn't know if I should tell him what I really thought. That's what I would do, knee-jerk reaction. But I realized that when we first talked that I needed to be kind of cool because I was competing for a job. But I'm not a yes man at all. That's everybody knows that. And I'm not even close. And we went through all this and we talked and he said, you read the script? He said, what do you think? And I mean, I'm not one to judge somebody's script because I'm not a writer. He said, well, about anything you see I said, I don't know. It's a script about, I've read the back of the book and it sounds like you're trying to, Kathy's telling a story like in the back of the book. And he said, was there anything you didn't like about the script, the first script that I read, which of course they changed as it were. And I remember thinking to myself, there was a couple things I read in there that didn't sound right, the way they were worded. And I thought, I'm going to tell him. I've never met this guy. Who knows if I'm going to get this job? And I said, well, there was a few things, the wording and the way things were written about the kid's character and just what was going on there. I don't know. There was just something that didn't sound right to me about this is the first script that I read. And he kind of chuckled and laughed. He says, well, it's funny you should say that because that's the only thing that I completely made up on my own. And, he laughed. And I think he thought that was great that I caught it. That I said it.
Yeah.
You're honest about it.
Yeah.
I think he thought that.
Well, yeah, in that world of his, like you probably have so many yes men that you need to have something.
And I said that, and he said, and I think he said something like, we'll talk about some of that, we'll talk about that later or something, and we'll talk about some things. And he asked for some things in my, but I'm no script writer or anything. But he just asked kind of like the wording that would be used, sort of. He asked a few
the
things
language,
like that.
the verbiage and stuff,
I very luckily was asked a few things like that on Ford versus Ferrari, and I'm very flattered that I was asked that during that show, that I could, hopefully I didn't screw anything up. I don't know.
That was a good movie.
Thanks. But the stuff that I told Jeff, anything.
So you got Christian Bale's number too?
Go through a list of whose phone numbers.
The next podcast will be, all right, let me see your phone. No, that's cool. Well, I'm just glad that like once I met you and I saw how passionate you were about it, it would be easier for me to regurgitate that to people that had those same kind of concerns. But I think it's like people's natural reaction in this day and age where you're asked to comment, you're asked to, like, everybody's, we're supposed to voice our opinion on social media.
You're supposed to look at a social media post and then say what you think about it, right?
Yeah, instead of
so everybody's got that in their mind to do that. And I that probably is the not so good part of social media, I guess.
Yeah, it's the part that doesn't, the platforms want you to do that because it makes them realize that that's getting attention. So they'll make that more popular for people to see. So the comments, the likes, and that's what helps people, that's what helps algorithms know, oh, this is people like this. Let's show
about this.
But the truth is, like when you make anything, even if you don't like it, like if you're of some kind of integrity, you don't say it. Like, hey, that's your jam over there. You're doing this. And
yeah, of course, because you showed me a picture of your motorcycle, right?
Yeah,
when we
thank
first
you.
met. What? And I don't know.
No, I'm just like, I'm waiting for the dig.
Yeah, here it comes. No, you know what I thought, because we had just met, and we're friendly now. My knee-jerk reaction is, this guy is busting my balls about a movie that's all panheads, and I asked you, what do you ride? And you're like,
twin cam chopper.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck? You don't even own a fan head, you know?
Yeah.
No, but I tried to be cool. I didn't say anything like that. You know, like you're giving me a bunch of shit about motorcycle and you ride a twin cam. And you pulled out the picture of your bike. And I remember the first thing I thought through my mind was, that's not my kind of motorcycle, but I like that paint job.
Yeah.
You know, I like that color. I don't think I said that's not my. I probably might have said it's not my, but I know that I said I like the paint job on your motorcycle, right? Mm-hmm. That is the way you interact with people, right?
Yeah.
You find a common ground instead of look for
you
and I started off a little rough, but I tried to find some common ground. I like the color of your motorcycle, and look at what happened. You end up coming over to my house. Your wife, we get along great. We love each other, right?
Yeah.
But it's better if you find your common ground with a human being than to just, oh, well, you did this, it's no good. You're different than me. You have a beard and I don't have a beard, or you know.
You have hair, I don't have hair. I'll trade you.
I'll trade your problems for my problems any day.
Yeah. So, well, that's also like, I have a good buddy, Instav and Kyle, who he builds bikes out of St. Louis area. And he's like a very vocal dude. He's very, very meticulous in the way he customizes bikes and stuff. And he's like, he tells me, he's like, people ask him to look at their bike all the time and say, what do you think? He goes, do you want my opinion?
Actually need to know what?
But he's a little more honest with that. But yeah, that's the point. It's like, you don't want to walk up to someone's bike that they're proud of and be like, oh, wrong bolts, should have went ARP, or, just find something that you would do differently. Even though, like, it's like criticism, right? Like Michael Lichter, every once in a while, I'll send him a batch of photos, or Tim O'Keefe, and be like, all right, help me out here. That's me needing to know the criticism.
Well, that's not on
social media on Front Street.
Where you just meet somebody. I think it's to quote a friend, David Brown, it's so much easier to be polite to somebody than to just try to figure out something but I think it'd be a better world. I think it would be a better world if people were just busting each other's balls on social media all the time.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, but then again, I guess you don't want to sugarcoat everything. And I think I'm like your friend, that when people ask me about something, I will give them my opinion. I'm not afraid to give somebody my opinion. I don't dig the fairing on your bike. I wouldn't put a fairing on my bike. Mm-hmm. But I do dig the paint job of your bike, and we ride motorcycles and we get along, and we like mid-century shit. So we're great. But if somebody said, hey, Jeff, I just built this thing, what do you think? I know that I should, now that I'm older and wiser, I should go with the positive, as Oliver would say, keep it positive. It's funny that he says keep it positive, because he sometimes can be the least positive human on the planet. But if you keep it positive for that, you're cool. And then if they really want to know, you can say, well, I would do this differently, or something like that. So but this movie is going to be, people are just going to fucking either say they love it, or they're going to complain about the fact that Austin's looking to his left instead of his right on the, but Jeff, the director, had some shots he wanted. And, let's face it, that's Austin Butler, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to look at
You're trying to sell this movie.
Yeah. You don't want to look at the back of Austin Butler's head, which is better looking than the back of everybody else's head, but you want to look at Austin Butler. So he told him to, I remember, because I was in the camera car when that was shot.
Yeah.
Jeff and I and the DP were riding in the camera car when that was shot. And I remember saying something like, you're having him look to the left. And I think he said, it's Austin Butler. You don't want to look at the back of his head. Mm-hmm. But Austin had gotten so comfortable riding. You can look at that picture and tell he's just comfortable as hell. And he just turned around and looked back, and it looks cool. I mean, Danny Lyon would take that photo.
Yeah. It's going to be funny. Like, how many people, like, on social media now in our scene, Devin, are going to start posting pictures of themselves looking back, trying to recreate the whole, just on the fucking, the aqueduct bridge. And
I kind of hope they do.
I think it's cool to do that
Oliver,
shit.
I have a bridge bike.
Yeah.
I have two. I had two. Oliver has one. I gave Oliver a bridge bike. Well, we made a trade, but he and I talked about it when we were in Ohio. Like, we should go ride the bike over the bridge and take a photo. But I think at the same token, I think we both thought, maybe we shouldn't do it. I don't know why we didn't do it. We probably should have. there's some photo floating around of him and I sitting on the two bikes next to each other.
Yeah.
Because he has the one that has the 50 model motor in it. I have the 57.
Well, I just think it's good to have some like insight of this stuff, and especially, you know, being a motorcycle podcast and, you know, based around the Harley Davidson culture. It's like, you know, I want people to go see this movie, you know, whatever small little blip it can do on the radar of showing, you know, Hollywood, showing, you know, media that like we want this type of content, if you will.
I think if here's my pitch for your audience, please go see it in the movie theater. Definitely. And I will apologize in advance if there's something people don't like. I'm sorry, but it's not going to be it's not going to be perfect for everybody. But I think people that ride motorcycles are going to love it. And the actors did a really good job. The costumes did a great job. The production design, everything that had to do with the props, the people that made everything. I mean, the bar, it's called the Stoplight Bar, which was where they hung out at. It looked so cool. Just the details of the photos on the bar were great. Everything. And they brought some big old Art Deco bar and put it in there. And just the effort that everybody put into it is, it's like I said, everybody put such an effort into it. And I think costumes, it was amazing. It was amazing. The costume department was amazing. They were just insane. And I hope people will forgive me that the bridge bike isn't the bike he's riding across the bridge, but that's how it worked out. And it's not really me. It's just his character.
Yeah.
You want his character to be doing it anyway. The acting is great.
Yeah.
You know,
and I mean, not that we need to talk about it, but just knowing like from the tidbits of what you told me about what the culture is like in movie making, it's like you don't have the luxury of just being like, I want this movie to be this. Yeah, you know, like you have so many chains of command that want to do it easier, less pushback, less complications. Just wrap this thing up, be under budget, get it fucking, you know, put it out. Next movie. It's like it's a passion project for you and for Jeff Nichols and for some certain people that are helping. But for the rest of them, it's a 9 to 5.
Oh, I think
know what I mean?
There's a lot of they know this. There's folks out there in every industry that really they go to work and they leave and they come back and they don't care. And I notice that you see it, people that work on shows, whether it's a movie, a TV show, or whatever. Not usually commercials because it happens so fast that really they're already like they've checked out. You know, there's 3 weeks left filming. They're thinking about the next job. They already know they're getting the checks for this job or the next job. That's a sad thing, but I think that's in every industry. This movie, I never checked out. I mean, I was there to the last day. I mean, and I don't think the other departments did. I think production design, the art department, the costume, I think they were in there the whole time. You know, just they wanted this thing to be. You're so vested at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
If anybody likes old clothes, for all you, and you know people love old clothes, and I think I know a million girls that would have shit themselves to walk on to because we were in a office building, so one whole floor of an office building. You know, imagine no offices in it, just an elevator in the middle and a whole floor of as tight as you could get racks of clothing that were period to late 50s to early 70s. It was the most amazing thing to me. If somebody that likes to wear cool clothes, you know, like old vintage. Yeah. It's like, how do you get this many clothes in this one building? I mean, I've worked on other shows but this was over the top. And they had all those patches made and they had, I've said this on, I think Dan's podcast, there, you know, each department, like Stunts, we had our own office, and then of course the motorcycles fall under picture cars because that's Teamster stuff. They have their place, but our office had a lot of, you know, we have the stunt guys headshots and some motorcycle photos, but down there in costumes they had reference photos. Oh, you would have shit. I mean, it was great. I would sometimes go down there way before filming, you know, when we were pre-production, and just stare at the photos that they had of reference photos. This is just amazing. It was all these black and white photos that were just incredible. And I guess Jeff had a good relationship with Danny Lyons, and he would just randomly send him photos that aren't in any books or anything, and I was on the text chain with some of the girls over in costumes and of course production design and art department, and we would get like, oh, I got some new photos from Danny Lyon, and you'd look at these things going, oh my God, what, how has the world not seen this cool, this just amazing? Because the guy that's riding across the river, one of the photos that I got, I realized that's that same guy. And it must be after he's over the bridge. Might have been taken the same day. And he's riding into a town. And it's just the back of him riding into a town. Oh, insane. And there's a photo of the real Benny and a few people just on the side of a highway, not a big busy highway, and their motorcycle sitting there. And it was the first time I ever saw the front of Benny's bike. There's only like a photo of the back of Benny's bike in the book. I thought, oh, we did okay. We're not too far off from Benny's bike.
You also we can start wrapping this up and everything, but it's perfect.
Is your man over there?
But the other cool thing that you had told me when we were at the house at your shop was that the real Danny is still alive and is thrilled that Austin Butler's playing him in a movie.
Oh, Benny.
Benny. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that I've got secondhand news from Jeff, I think, because somebody in the Midwest found out that the movie was being made, I guess somehow. I guess, and they got a hold of the real Benny's son, or he found out or something. And his dad, I don't want to give it away where he's moved to, because that's part of the whole thing, was there. And I guess I've heard that somebody took a video of him riding a motorcycle, like, here, this is the real Benny still riding a motorcycle in 2023 or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and the story I got is he's very happy that Austin Butler is playing him.
That's pretty cool. Hell yeah. I'm excited, man. I can't wait till it come out. And we basically looking like a month away from it now. I think what is today, the 20 a month. Today's the 22nd. So
4 weeks, kids.
I'm excited. And, once again, I'm glad that this whole thing came together. We ran into each other the way we did. We got to have the times we've spent already, this conversation here. And looking forward to, doing more podcasts with you about other shit. There's so much other stuff behind on other areas of what you do, from your, actual building and customizing and not, stunt, driving, riding, however you. When I say stunt riding, I took Tim to talk about stunt riders, doing wheelies and shit.
I'm a stunt driver, and I ride motorcycles and stunts. I'm not a. Yeah. Some of the guys that work for me do a lot of stunt riding. Yeah. But they're also stunt guys. Yeah. It's all stunt stuff. Yeah. When I was younger, I did much more of that than I do now. Yeah. But I'm older and more of a stunt coordinator now. I drive a lot of cars in commercials. Yeah.
But I do appreciate you coming out. I know you got a busy schedule with all the promotion going on with this movie, and it's good. I really appreciate it, man.
I appreciate having me. I'm humbled that you wanted me to come. And
I've been hearing about you for years. It's
I hope it wasn't all bad.
No, I think it's just people you're a known name here in Dallas amongst this culture that we're a part of, and I mean, just you have that kind of name that people always say your last name.
I know,
your first
everybody
name.
Just calls me Milburn.
Yeah, it's Jeff Milburn's coming over. It's why don't you just call him Jeff?
It's I get the moment. It's funny on the show. Yeah, since there's Jeff Nichols and Jeff Milburn. I think at the beginning of everybody getting to, because the way movies come together and a production company comes together, they start people trickling into the city or the office or wherever. It depends on if you're shooting in Los Angeles or wherever city. And at one point, people kept saying Jeff. They were calling me Jeff Stunts and Jeff Director. And then the AD department, which Don was the first AD. I really liked him. I liked Don. He was great. He said something, well, in the AD department, we call it Big Jeff and Little Jeff. I'm like, that's not going to work. I'm like, we're not going to call me Little Jeff. Okay. Yeah. I'm not saying there's anything, but I just please don't call me Little Jeff. It's like, why do I have to be Little Jeff? Can't I be Big Jeff? I mean, can he be Little Jeff? No, he's the director. He's Big Jeff. But I think that died off and it just became Milburn. And
Milburn.
Yeah.
Well, it's a cool. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate it. And we'll see you in a movie here pretty soon.
Thanks.
All right, bud.
Thank you, sir.